NFL Draft afternoon, and welcome to 580 Sports Talk with Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero. Here with you until 6 o'clock this evening. It's early afternoon, whatever you want to call it. We've got all things NFL Draft to recap from this weekend. The good for the Chiefs. I don't really think there's any bad for the Chiefs, in fact. But we will recap what their draft looks like, what this class looks like, some of the overall trends, a.k.a. why the Chiefs wanted as many plus athletes as they could possibly get. We will get to that coming up here in just a minute. Also this hour, we will talk to our good pal Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated about all things NFL Draft, both the Chiefs and national perspective. Also coming up later on in the show today, we will take a look overall at the draft classes from around the NFL. We will hear what the rest of the, or we will talk about what the rest of the NFL draft look like, biggest surprises and favorite classes for other teams around the league. Maybe it's our favorite teams that had really good classes. I know the Seahawks had a good draft. I'm very happy with the Packers. Can we agree the worst class of anyone was the Lions?
Yeah, I don't think we have to do much in the way of debate on that.
Yeah, that was, you can say, well, running backs deserve more attention or linebackers are still worth it or whatever. That's fine. But if you just talk about the money and how important those positions are to winning immediately, the Lions used their first 4 picks on the least valuable 4 positions in all of football. Running back, then linebacker, then tight end, and then safety in one of the worst safety classes in modern memory. That was their first 4 picks. It was very funny. And a lot of Lions fans on Twitter are like, no, but we still got good players. You players over value. Nah, dude, this was bad. Like, you did not need to take Jahmyr Gibbs with the 12th overall pick. That was very dumb. But at the same time, very, very funny.
And they turn around and trade the perfectly good DeAndre Swift to the Philadelphia Bulldogs. Because Philadelphia has not seen a Georgia player that doesn't want on its team. But it was strange. Like, I don't know what the through line thought process is other than tough football guys.
That's kind of that's their thing.
Let's accumulate more tough football guys.
More dudes who will bite kneecaps. That's what we want.
Can I just say, first of all, before we really get rolling here, how nice it is to be back on the air at this time. It was very strange the last few days.
Yeah, Dan was hosting Mic'd Up Thursday and Friday last week.
Yeah, so, and that's not to say that I didn't enjoy...
Does Dan hate Fulton?
No, that is not to say... you didn't let me finish my sentence. A very unfair accusation. It is not to say I did not enjoy my time with Fulton from noon to 3. It's just, you get used to being on the air at a certain time. We had like a 30-minute show on Wednesday, and then I did the earlier shift the last 2 days. So this is kind of foreign to me to be on from 3 to 6. But yeah, it's nice to be back.
I was saying to my wife this morning as I was leaving home, I thought, this is my first regular day of work since Tuesday last week. We only had a half an hour show on Wednesday, and I did it from my home studio. We had draft stuff and the mix and match shows on Thursday. Friday, we didn't have a show. Well, we didn't have sports talk on Friday. You were on from the draft. And I thought, dang, I have like real work this week. I kind of liked being on the road and not having shows a couple of days. That was kind of nice. It was like an extra little vacation. But we are back at normal show today. Lots of draft to get to, as I was mentioning. We'll talk about all of it from a full league and Chiefs perspective over the course of the show. A lot of interest with the local guys as well. Tons of good. The 4 K-State players got drafted. That is awesome. Super cool. Great for them. Great stories, each one of them. Little bummed about Lonnie Phelps. Even more so than, Earl Bostic, I wish he had gotten drafted too. I'm not quite as surprised. I'm bummed Lonnie Phelps didn't get picked, though. There are people who thought he might be a 4th rounder, 4th or 5th, and goes undrafted. But we will talk about that. J.J. Letcher, all-time Washburn football great. He's got a mini camp tryout with the Kansas City Chiefs. That is super cool to hear. So we'll get to the local guys a little bit later. We will talk some Royals baseball. If I told you that the Royals were 7 of their last 39 with runners in scoring position, would you be surprised?
Their record in those games wouldn't surprise me if you told me that.
If I told you that Jordan Lyles is in fact pretty bad, would that surprise you?
No, especially not me.
Man, he got cooked this weekend. As to Brady Singer, don't want to follow up your best start of the year with your worst. Not especially great for Brady Singer. We will talk Royals baseball later on. No Royals game tonight. They'll open up a series with the Orioles coming up tomorrow. We will talk about that over the course of the next week. Also today, we've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines, our first What Is Wrong With You of the week and of the month. And we will get to Good, Bad, and Ugly later on this hour here on 580 Sports Talk. By the way, not only, and I mentioned this while we were doing our live show during the first round of the draft, you didn't get to be a part of the playoff roundup on Thursday on the show last week because you had been doing Mic'd Up. You didn't get to be a part of the championship for What Is Wrong With You.
I didn't. Who all did you pick?
The world's biggest toll hater. That was the winner. The guy who refused to pay his tolls on his motorcycle, so he took off his license plate. Then when he got pulled over, instead of just paying a $115 fine, he ran over a cop.
That's a really good story. I'm not upset that one won.
That one beat the bus stealing nudist. If you remember him from our first weekly winner of the week. Jake picked that one in a heartbeat. Like, we didn't even get to the story, and he said, no, that one wins that semifinal. He was adamant. But yeah, the world's biggest toll hater ended up getting the win. I thought that was a great story.
That
was a good month. That Final Four for April, phenomenal.
Strong month.
So we will begin a new month of What Is Wrong With You coming up here today.
You guys were lucky you picked the right one. Otherwise, we would have held a protest. We would have had to go to the monitor. We had to do a VAR check on the What Is Wrong With You championship.
Well, would have been fair. I'm going to be completely honest. I meant to shoot you a text at one point and say, can you send us a vote at least for a tiebreaker?
But no, you were having too much fun at the draft. You didn't think of your old pal, Dan. You were having too much fun, hanging out, posing for pictures near the Packer helmets. And I saw what you were up to.
I did. I told Jake as we walked in, I said, dude, I'm sorry, but neither of us is ever going to be in an NFL draft again. So you have to take a picture of me right now. And he said, okay, fine.
Now, did you go and pose with like the uniform, like put your head behind the Packer guy?
No, did not do that. I figured I'd let literal children do that.
There was like a 15-minute line for the Chiefs mannequin.
I believe it. The line for the Chiefs helmet, just the big ceramic helmet, was 100 people deep. It was incredible. I saw someone today call it the Coachella of the NFL, which, I mean, probably a little less ecstasy at the NFL draft, but it's insane. There are so many people.
Well, there are also a lot of costumes. Maybe it's more like the NFL Burning Man.
Ooh, that's probably accurate. Yeah. That's good.
And for the record, you said less ecstasy. Not less of other drugs. At least if my experience on Friday is anything to draw on.
Yeah.
Let's just say there's a certain plant that is not legal where we sit, but it is legal in the state to the west, and it is newly legal in the state to the east. And there were some folks who were partaking.
Handful of folks consuming some of the Maui Wowie this weekend. I'll tell you that. And I told Jake, as we walked in, and I saw two different families, one little kid on the shoulders, one pushing what was clearly like a 1-year-old in a stroller. And I thought, why are you bringing a baby to this? Like, I think bringing babies to sporting events, sorry if this is, critical of something you might choose to do, but like, why? They're just going to be crying and they need to be changed and they're not watching the game. You can't really focus on the game. Like, you might just get a sitter. Like, it's fine. And we walked in and was like, why are you bringing a baby to the NFL draft? And then I got hit with a music festival amount of weed right in my face. And I was like, whoa, okay. Definitely would not bring my child to this. Definitely not the place for them. Whoa. It was cool, though. Like, the way it was set up was perfect. How it was kind of tiered from the very top of the World War I memorial down to kind of that mezzanine of grass almost, and then down into the theater. I thought it looked really cool.
Yeah, like visually it was stunning, and there was so much to do. Like it's incredible, and it speaks to the power of the NFL. Like, any league would love to be able to hold like a fan fest, which this essentially is, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is a gathering of fans to see things, and for the kids to participate in things, and to buy things and buy more things and get some autographs and get some team merch and all of that. And like, I don't know what the NBA does for an all-star game, because I've never been around one of those. I think the NHL, and I went to the Major League Baseball all-star game fan fest when I was a kid, and the all-star game was in Denver. The NFL has managed to put one of these together around the draft, a teleconference. They
Incredible.
put it together around the draft. And it makes all the sense in the world, right? Because if you do it around the Super Bowl, travel get down to the Super Bowl is expensive. Like they could easily do this, and they probably do like a variation on it around the Super Bowl. But this actually makes a lot more sense. It's a little more accessible. It's in April.
Yep.
They can take it to more places. Like, unless Kansas City builds a retractable roof stadium, Kansas City's not getting a Super Bowl. But they can have the draft. Nashville, unless you build a retractable roof stadium, you're not getting a Super Bowl. But they got a draft. So you can bring it more places. It's more accessible for more of your fans. And it's just everybody's in a good mood. Everybody is hanging out and smiling, and the kids are having fun running the 40, throwing the football around, whatever it is. Some people just brought footballs, their own footballs, just toss them around on the lawn. Everybody's wearing like the most obscure jersey they can dig out of their closet. I saw somebody in a Case Keenum Bills jersey. That left an impression. It is. It's football-a-palooza is what it is. And it's amazing that the NFL has the power to put this together around what used to just be a 2-day conference call.
Yeah, it's incredible. 312,000 people showed up. That's insane. And some of that is probably overlap day to day, but still, total head count over the 3 days, that is absolutely unbelievable. We'll talk more draft overall coming up later this hour when Matt Verderame joins us. He was in town for the draft. Thoughts on the Chiefs class? If you don't remember all the names, real quick, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, final pick of the first round. You want to talk about the crowd pleaser? I said during the live stream on Thursday night, it's like at a non-televised wrestling show where you want the kids and the families to go home happy so the good guy always wins. That's the Chiefs picking a kid from Lee Summit High who played at K-State.
Yeah.
Like, perfect. Rashee Rice, wide receiver from SMU, he goes in the second round. They traded up to get him. They trade up in the third to get Wanya Morris, the other starting offensive tackle from Oklahoma. We talked so much about Anton Harrison. I don't think Morris's name came up more than, once, maybe, over in the couple of weeks leading up to the draft. They trade up in the fourth round to get Shamari Connor, who it looks like is maybe more of a safety in the NFL, but a defensive back nonetheless from Virginia Tech. Fifth round, B.J. Thompson, an edge from Stephen F. Austin, who started his career at Baylor. And then in the sixth round, Keandre Coburn, a defensive tackle from Texas. And in the seventh round with pick number 250, Nick Jones, a corner from Ball State. Here's what stood out to me the most about this class, because I thought it's a good class. Like, I think Felix Anudike-Uzomah is a good player. I said on 580 Sports Talk Thursday, best case scenario for him was probably sneaking into one of the last two picks of the first round. Definitely a top 50 player. Really like his upside, and right away he can probably be a third down specialist kind of player. I like Rashee Rice, another guy who I think has a lot of potential, maybe not super contributor right away, but I like the idea. A lot of good fits, if not super splashy picks. These dudes are athletes. Of the Chiefs' 7 picks they ended up making, they traded 4 times, by the way, 5 of them graded out as elite athletes, according to Relative Athletic Score, which is essentially about 8.3 and higher. It's a scale of 10. 8.3 or so or higher is considered a great or elite athlete. The first 5 picks all meet that category. So if you're not going to get instant impact, like superstar blue chip talents, you may as well get dudes with great athletic profiles and say, we can mold you into great immediate impact players.
Yeah, this draft feels like a bet on the player development for the Chiefs, a bet on guys being able to elevate their games based upon the athletic tools that they have, making them a good fit for what it is the Chiefs like to do on both sides of the ball. The thing that people don't talk about as much, I think, with Felix Anudike-Uzomah is how young he is. Just 21 years old. There's some guys that win this draft that are like 24. Hendon Hooker, can rent a car. Like, there are guys in this draft, 23, 24 years old. To get a 21-year-old who just won the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, that matters. There's a ton of upside with a pick like that. So to get a young player with that physical talent that Felix has, and the belief that you can bring him in and you can develop him in a way that you've developed other defensive linemen. Same goes for the later picks of B.J. Thompson and Keandre Coburn. Now, Thompson, if he's got to fit on this roster right away, it's going to be pin your ears back and go get the quarterback, like DE4, DE5. Keandre Coburn, if he has a role, is, kind of a run-stopping plugger type. But again, what you're gambling on is the work of Joe Cullen as your defensive line coach, the work of C. Spagnuolo as your defensive coordinator, and growth and improvement as those guys go. Wanya Morris, named after the Boyz II Men singer. Did you know that?
I knew that as of this weekend. Yes. I did not know that previously.
Yeah, that was new information, but it might be my favorite tidbit about any of these guys that the Chiefs took, is that Wanya Morris is named after the singer from the Philadelphia R&B group Boyz II Men. Somebody who, again, very raw, but the Chiefs have done a terrific job developing raw talent on their offensive line with Andy Heck as their offensive line coach, with Andy Reid's background with working with offensive linemen. So, again, take somebody where the measurables are there. Maybe they just need to get the technique right. Maybe they just need to make sure that their body is in the right condition and in the right position to play and make plays and be impactful. Rashee Rice is another one who, that was a wide receiver that a lot of people didn't have going maybe to the Chiefs in the draft. There were lots of other names. We hit on so many names. We talked about so many different wide receivers. This wasn't one that we brought up, but I'll tell you what the Chiefs thought of him. They brought him in to work with Patrick Mahomes, and the whole world knew that Quentin Johnson and Zay Flowers were catching passes from Patrick Mahomes. We did not find out that Rashee Rice was catching passes from Mahomes until he was a Kansas City Chief.
And that was not by accident.
No. So obviously they identified something with this player athletically, with his separation at the line, ability after the catch. When they showed his highlight package on ESPN the night he was drafted, one of the plays they showed, that pop pass, that shotgun chest pass, essentially, to Rice coming around the corner, around the goal line to score. That's been one of the Chiefs' best plays since Patrick Mahomes has been their quarterback. They love that play, and they think they found another guy who can do that. I think he'll be better at doing the Sky Moore things that Sky Moore was asked to do as a rookie than Sky Moore was at doing the things that I think he was asked to do as a rookie in the Chiefs' offense. So, and then Shamari Connor, tremendous athlete, and I think feels a little L'Jarius Sneed-ish potentially as a player. We talked about, hey, maybe this is a position where the Chiefs are feeling like they're going to have a hard time extending L'Jarius Sneed. Maybe they need to start to develop or identify the next L'Jarius Sneed. Maybe this is that guy.
Could be.
I do. I think they very clearly took a look at this draft and saw it as an opportunity to draft players with upside. And it's a thing you can do when you're in the spot the Chiefs are, when your roster is championship caliber, when you have solid depth and solid starters, you feel good about your starters at all 22 positions, then you have an opportunity to gamble a little bit on some athletic upside and bring in players who have a chance to help you as depth pieces early in their careers as they grow. And if you hit on 3, 4, 5 of these guys and they go from beyond being depth pieces to starters to, on the high end, maybe Pro Bowlers, then you've knocked the draft out of the park. And the Chiefs can afford, being the defending champs, being in the place that they are with their roster and their salary cap situation right now, they could afford to target upside, higher ceilings rather than higher floors.
I think my favorite pick of this draft for the Chiefs is one of the day 2 guys. I love that they were aggressive. They said, we want Rashee Rice. He might not be there when we pick at 63. Let's move up and get him. It did goof up our plans for draft coverage a little bit because we said, all right, we're going to go live in 10 minutes. Then they traded up and we said, okay, we're going live right now. But a little inside baseball for you. But I like the Rashee Rice pick. I like the Wanya Morris pick. The fact that Morris has played on the shoulder of Trey Smith before, I think is very valuable. And he said in his introductory Zoom press conference, when he was asked about playing with Trey Smith and what's that going to be like, I mean, he nearly got teary-eyed talking about it and said, that's my guy. And he was the first one to call me when I got drafted. And it felt so good. And I've been keeping tabs in his career. And I'm just so excited to be playing with him again. And continuity and communication and chemistry are all so important for offensive line play. You can have really good offensive line pieces, but if the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, you're going to be in trouble. So having that built-in chemistry right there already helps. And I agree on the Rashee Rice point. I mean, he's got speed. He's got all the traits you can say that guy's going to be a good NFL player. Now, you have to put it all together, and it looked like that his senior year at SMU. He was awesome last year at SMU. 96 catches and, what was it, nearly 1,400 yards, I think it was?
Yeah.
He had a great senior season at SMU. You just got to make sure you can put that all together at the next level. But the way the Chiefs have constructed their wide receiver room, I think you've got enough pieces where you can say, hey, look, like you said, we're going to have you do some more of the jet stuff. You know, you're not going to have a super complex route tree. Now, you have to learn it anyway, because if you want to have a bigger role in this team, you need to know all the route tree left and right, be able to execute it all left and right. Understand that, but you can bring him along a little bit slowly. Moore can move into a role that is more suitable for him. You still got MVS as your deep, big guy. Justin Watson is the clear out guy. Obviously, Travis Kelce is what he is. I think those two day 2 picks are probably my favorite of the draft. Although I will tell you this, I like Felix Anudike-Uzomah, and I do think he's going to fill an important role. One, he's going to wear 97, which is a great edge rusher number.
Yes.
Great number. He's the only rookie who has a number that I've seen as of yet. Also, taking 2 edges in this class, first time they've done that since 2011. That was Justin Houston and Alan Bailey, who played for the Chiefs for a surprisingly long time. Also, my dream of having the NASCAR package in the Chiefs' defensive strategy, more and more realistic at this point. Chris Jones on the inside, you bump Karlaftis on the inside, then you send Felix Anudike-Uzomah off one edge, and then either Dana or Thompson or Omenahu off the other edge. That gigantic, absolutely massive package. Every single time that it's 3rd and 10 for the Chiefs defense, they should be sending 3 edge rushers after the quarterback, and it'll work. Yeah. There's a lot of talent and a lot of speed right there.
Yeah, I'm excited for that pass rush group, and I really like, the more that I think about the Felix pick, you look at what he did over the last 2 seasons at Kansas State, and you remember 2 things. Number one, he was 19 and 20 years old when he was doing this against more veteran college players than you might typically see because of the COVID year. And the other thing that you have to remember is that he was doing this as a defensive end in a 3-man front, which means every play he's seeing a double team, unless he was just beating the tackle to the outside, which he did quite a bit because he's an incredible athlete, but lots and lots of double teams because of the scheme. Never mind the fact that teams wanted to double team him because he was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. He was, he had 23 sacks over the last 2 seasons. So facing a lot of double teams, he was still productive, disruptive, menacing. And now he's going to be playing in a 4-man front, which will suit him better, suit him physically better. I think that he is going to have an opportunity to be a very productive pass rusher. I said on Mic'd Up on Friday, I think he can be as productive as Karlaftis was last year.
Okay.
I think he can be that productive for them. He may not be a 3-down guy for them by the end of the year because they do have Karlaftis and they do have Omenahu, but even if he's not a 3-down defensive end for them by the end of the year, I think he can still get to that 6 sacks that Karlaftis got to last year.
We've got to get to our first break here on 580 Sports Talk. Keep sending in your YouTube comments. Our channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. Hit us up on the text line as well. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. We'll come back, recap the whole weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly on 580 Sports Talk.
Do you have
Before we get to Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated, it's time for the good, the bad, and the ugly here on 580 Sports Talk. My good was the Kansas State Wildcats this weekend. 4 K-State players end up getting drafted. Felix, obviously, to the Chiefs. That's one of the coolest stories of the whole weekend. Then you have Julius Brents, an Indy guy who's going to the Indianapolis Colts. Josh Hayes, a Tampa guy who's going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then Deuce Vaughn, in the most viral clip of draft weekend on social media and on the internet, gets a call from his own dad, who's a scout for the Cowboys, saying, "Do you want to come to work with me?" Like that. How freaking cool is that? All 4 dudes got to go to their hometown team. I mean, that's just, that's almost impossible. Like, I don't know how that happens. Yeah. But that is just so cool for them.
Yeah, that was my good too. I mean, what a great feeling that must be, because you have to know that those kids grew up, maybe dreaming about being drafted by their hometown team. We know that Felix said he's been a Chiefs fan his whole life, been a Chiefs fan since he was a kid, was a huge Frank Clark fan, loved to watch him play, and now he essentially has to follow in his footsteps.
Right.
That's his roster spot that he's taking over. So that was really, really neat. And then, I mean, from the even more local perspective of it, we've now learned that there are 2 Washburn wide receivers from the state of Kansas who have gotten mini camp invites from the Kansas City Chiefs, as we just learned that Peter Apple from Leavenworth will join Lawrence, excuse me, will join JJ Letcher as players from the Ichabods who have gotten Chiefs training camp invites. Lawrence, not Leavenworth. My bad on that. But yeah, really, really neat that these guys get an opportunity to start their pro careers with their hometown teams. And the Deuce Vaughn thing, that if that doesn't give you chills, I don't know, man. Check your pulse.
Yeah, that was just so cool. I hate to completely give away our 435 segment, but the bad for me, I'm just bummed for the KU guys, specifically Lonnie Phelps. I mean, I get why he wasn't drafted, and I told you, my worry was that teams are going to see him as a tweener, and less teams are interested in guys who don't have, a clear jumping off point. Well, you're a 4-3 outside linebacker. Are you an edge guy? Are you a 4-3 end? What's kind of your role? I think he's going to latch on in Cleveland. I would not be shocked at all if he ends up making their roster or at least their practice squad. But no, I'm bummed for him. Earl Bostic got a good situation, I think, going to Dallas. That's a place that has brought in a lot of KU guys, undrafted or drafted. Dorrance Armstrong, who's turned into a really good player. Azure Kamara as well. He ended up in Dallas for a couple of seasons. So good fit, but bump for those guys that didn't end up getting drafted. That was tough.
My bad. I don't know who necessarily is to blame for this, whether it's the NFL, whether it's local business decision, but $50 for parking for the NFL draft experience is some nasty work.
Yeah, it's gross.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be that. It doesn't need to be that.
I mean, it was the way it was set up, both for fans and for media members, which affected us, was actually really easy. Like, you park, you walk, not even 10 minutes to get to the media entrance. You walk in. It was pretty easily set up and pretty linear. But yeah, $50 to park. That gets to my ugly. Jake and I could not get into the building on Thursday. Like, we showed up and we had gotten some somewhat conflicting information about when we could have or should have gotten our credentials and whether or not we could get into the media room early. It was a whole thing. We got turned away by about 8 different people who told us 8 different things. The people working the event also were clearly sympathetic with us. One guy was like, "Guys, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. I'm just trying to do my job." We're like, "No, man, you're fine. We don't know what we're supposed to do." So eventually we got in, but I thought, man, this could have been a little bit clearer. If not for us, then for other people. So that was my ugly. That's a pretty, if that's the ugly for the weekend, things weren't too bad, but
right.
We spent like 2 hours just sort of pacing around, like, what are we doing?
My ugly will be obvious to anybody who is watching the YouTube stream and seeing me claw at my extremely itchy eyes. It is extremely allergy season. And we had to do yard work yesterday, mow the lawn, did a little lawn treatment. We got a dandelion situation we're trying to take care of. So a lot of time outside doing lawn stuff. And I've got a bit of an allergy to that stuff, and like also the whole outdoors. So this is a rough go for your boy on the allergy front. They are running up the score on me today.
We're going to get to a quick timeout. When we come back, Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated joins us to talk all things NFL Draft. That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk.
I'm Jim Chesko with you.
Matt?
You just don't understand football, Mart.
Matt.
Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
How can he not be romantic about football, man?
Joining us now on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline is Matt Verderame. Joins us every Monday here on 580 Sports Talk. Covers the whole NFL for Sports Illustrated. You can find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Matt, how did you enjoy your stay in Kansas City for the draft?
I enjoyed it immensely. My body, I think, was ready to quit with all the barbecue over the first 2 days, but that's all right. We made it through, and I had enough burnt ends to last me until I go back to training.
Hey, that's what we like to hear. Well, let's jump right into it because there was so much to get to from what a lot of people thought would be maybe one of the most unpredictable drafts in recent memory. Let's start local to our team, and let's start with the Kansas City Chiefs. Overall, what'd you think of the athletes, the players, and the fits that the Chiefs brought in?
I thought they did a nice job. You know, I had to go out and give grades for all these teams, and my job was to grade the AFC for Sports Illustrated, and I gave the Chiefs a B. Which look, it's the further back you draft, the harder it is, at least in my opinion, to get a better grade because you're not getting your chance at Will Anderson Jr. So I thought the Chiefs did really well. You know, I actually had them right between the Bills and Bengals, and I had all of them graded as B class. So I really like that they went out, and it seems like they addressed their three biggest needs in the first three rounds. I didn't think they reached. Rashee Rice is a kid that, I think going a little earlier than maybe some people expected, maybe 10, 15 picks, but that's also based off of mock drafts that we all do that in reality are kind of an exercise in futility when you look at who he is, you look at his take, you look at his skill set, he fits what they want to do really well. I think, Anadike Uzama, you look at him and you see that's a kid who's 21 years old, 19 and a half sacks last year. He's getting better every year. Look, forget even that he's a K-State product. Forget that. He can play. He's a really, really nice young player, and he's really similar in size to Karloff. He's built a little differently, but height and weight about the same. I thought the Chiefs had a really good day 3. I love the pick of Connor out of Virginia Tech. I think he's somebody who come in right away, play teams, give him some punch on the back end in some situations. So I thought Kansas City did a nice job, especially considering, they're not drafting top 5, top 10.
Yeah, I think the Connor one is probably Dave Tobe's favorite pick too. If I'm not mistaken, I think I saw he had over 800 special team snaps in his career at Virginia Tech. So yeah, I think he'll be a contributor right away. And that was what I wanted to follow up with is how many of these guys do you think can make a big impact right away? Like I figure Anudike Uzama will step in and at the very least will be a rotational pass rusher from the beginning. And Dan and I both thought that maybe Rashee Rice is a more natural fit as a rookie for some of that jet sweep horizontal stuff than Sky Moore was a year ago. Who do you think can fit in right away as an instant contributor, and who might it maybe take a little longer for?
Well, if you put special teams aside and you're just looking at the two main phases of the game, I think, look, Anudike Uzama is a guy I think is going to play. They have Amenahu, of course, have Karlaftis. Dana, you can put him inside, put him outside. Jones will occasionally play outside, but I think he's going to rotate in. I don't think it's going to be like Karlaftis where he played a lion's share of the snaps pretty much right away. And I think that's credit to the roster. They don't need him to do that right away, but I do think he'll play a good bit. And then, beyond him, I don't know that you're going to have a guy who you just look out of that class and go, that guy's going to play immediately. I mean, the one sleeper I'd give you is Coburn. Coburn, big defensive tackle, 330 pounds plus. He's the kind of a guy I could see him just winning the job over Nadi if he has a really good camp, or at least, winning the job to an extent that he's playing inside, first down, second down, stuff like that. But I think overall, look, when you look at him, I don't think you're going to have anybody in the secondary draft who's going to start right away. Rice could. I mean, if he goes out and he just blows everybody away at camp, but realistically, do I think he's going to be a top 2, top 3 receiver on that team the second he walks out of training camp? Probably not. So I wouldn't expect it to be like last year where they just had all these guys starting. I think the roster's just in a place where they don't need 3, 4, 5 guys stepping in and starting right away. Morris is the other guy you say maybe just can he beat out in Yang? I think he's going to have a real shot.
Our guest is Matt Verderame, who covers the National Football League for Sports Illustrated and joins us every Monday here to talk NFL on 580 Sports Talk, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. You can find Matt's great work at Sports Illustrated online. You can also find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Matt, lots of talk going into the draft about how unpredictable it was going to be. At the end of the day, particularly at the end of day 1, did you find yourself thinking that it had been an unpredictable first round or first day, or did things kind of fall in the end in a fairly predictable direction with teams drafting for need and making picks that made sense?
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I really expected a lot of chaos. I think most people in the league did. There wasn't that much. I mean, there really wasn't. There were a few trades here and there. The Steelers moved up a few spots, Pats moved down. The Jags and the Bills made a small trade in the back end where they swapped a couple of picks. But I think really the huge trade was Houston going up to 3. And by the way, I know there have been conjecture on that back and forth. Did Houston give up too much? I don't care. If you're Houston and Stroud and Anderson work out to the extent that they want them to work out to, you win. I don't care what you gave up. Because you know what? At some point, you got to start building out that roster. I love what they did. I thought that was aggressive. I thought it was smart. The players got to prove themselves out. But I like what Houston did there. But I thought overall, I wasn't surprised Carter went in the top 10. I know there was conjecture on that. I would have been very surprised if he fell out of the top 10. I was surprised that Gonzalez, Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon, the corner. I'm surprised he lasted until 17. Nice pick by New England. I guess if there was a small surprise, only one tight end in the first round, Dalton Kincaid to the Bills. Thought there might be 2 or 3. Joey Porter falling out of the first round, but he went 32nd. I mean, essentially he would have gone a normal first round. I don't think there was anything stunning. Jalen Hyatt falling to the third round to the Giants is a little surprising. But nothing that was just stunning. Even Levis. I know maybe to some people that was stunning. I was not surprised by that. I wouldn't have bet on him getting to the second round. But you talked to a lot of people in the league, and I said this a few times on this show. I couldn't find one person on a first-round grade, not one. And he ended up going top of the second, and I actually think it's a pretty good spot for him. I really do. I think Tennessee's a place you can go learn from Tannehill for a year. So in the end, I think for Will Levis, tough night, embarrassing night. I don't think it's the worst thing that's going to happen in the long term. No.
Of the AFC contenders, teams that we would expect to be in the mix in the conference and challenge the Chiefs for AFC supremacy, which of those teams did themselves the most favors, helped themselves the most in their draft?
Like I said, as far as the real upper crust, which I would say is Chiefs and the Bengals and the Bills, I give all the teams a B, actually. So I think those teams really kind of played pretty evenly, if you will. I thought the Bills did really well days 1 and 2. I thought Osiris Torres, a guard for the Bills in round 2, was a run-out value pick. Kincaid is a really good young tight end, pass catching type prospect. But I don't think any of those teams really gained ground or lost ground on one another based on this draft. Of course, the years will play out and we'll find out if I'm right or wrong. But I thought the Ravens did well. I had them with a B+. Baltimore always drafts well because they know exactly who they are. The Ravens don't stray. They don't deviate. I love Zay Flowers. I think he's a good fit for Lamar Jackson. As the rounds went on, I thought they filled out the roster well. Felt like they got a good mix of depth and high upside guys. And then, obviously, I don't know that I'd throw the Steelers into the big contenders mix. I thought the Steelers had the best draft of any team in the NFL, right there with Seattle. You add Darnell Washington in the third round. Some people thought it was a first-round pick. Now, the medical's a little bit shaky. He's 6'7". That he is going to form a nice duo with Pat Freiermuth. You look at Joey Porter Jr. A lot of people thought he was a top 15 pick. They got him at 32nd, and they got Broderick Jones. I mean, those three kids pan out nothing else. And by the way, Nick Herbig, I think, is a pretty good linebacker out of Wisconsin. But if they got nothing else, that is a great class. So I thought Pittsburgh really is going to give Kenny Pickett every opportunity to really be improved this year.
We're chatting with Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated, national NFL writer. He joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. You can go find Matt's work at SI.com and in Sports Illustrated and on Twitter at Matt Verderame. So we know, Matt, that you think the Steelers and the Seahawks had two of the best drafts of anybody, and I think both Dan and I would agree with that as well. What about the flip side? Who had the worst draft of anyone this weekend, and why is it the Detroit Lions?
The Lions, I'm actually in a weird spot with that. The Lions, I thought day one were a disaster. I don't understand it. I thought it was bizarre. And the shame of it is, look, I mean, obviously I cover the league for a living. I don't have a dog in the fight with this, but I think anytime a team has been so bad for so long, like there's just a human part of you. It's like, it'd be nice if they were good. It'd be nice if that panned out for the fans of Detroit. And you felt so good. And then they got in the draft and they took Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell. And I still don't know why. I don't get it. And they showed Jahmyr Gibbs getting drafted. You would have thought the Lions won the Super Bowl. The reaction in that war room. I thought they did much better day two. I liked that they got Brian Branch at safety. I liked some of their picks day two. That said, of all the grades I gave out, I think the worst was Denver. I thought Denver's draft was atrocious. I don't understand. And I want to be clear, it's not even so much the players. Like, I think Marvin Mims is actually a pretty good prospect. I like his talent. It was just the thought process seemed to be completely lacking. First of all, you're hurt right off the bat. You're on the first round pick, right? They don't draft at the very end of the second round. They draft a receiver when the only strength of that team offensively are their receivers. So they drafted another receiver. They didn't address their offensive line at all. They didn't address their pass rush at all. Riley Moss, I actually like him. Like, I saw him at the Senior Bowl. He's impressive, corner out of Iowa, but that's far from your biggest need. I know people say you don't draft for need. Well, you kind of do. You mix the two of them. And I thought it was a weird draft. And then Miami was the other one, but Miami was more that they had 4 picks and they didn't draft them later. I mean, I like Cam Smith, the corner they got in the second round, but I thought the rest of those picks, you're talking about depth guys, special teams guys. So look, Miami already did their window shopping. They got Ramsey. They got Hill last year. But I thought Denver, of all the teams I walked away from, I said, I don't get it. I don't know what that draft accomplishes for you.
The thing that really jumped out to me, Matt, last one I've got for you here, is it felt to me with all the moves they made up, and I know part of it is, Sean Payton took that job knowing he was going to have a lot of pull. I understand that. But it sort of felt to me like George Payton knows that the next misstep is going to cost him his job kind of draft. Because if you look at the rest of the division, even, the Chiefs, solid, good draft. I thought the Chargers overall pretty solid. Even the Raiders, I thought, had a pretty decent draft from top to bottom. But it felt like the Broncos just felt like we got to make a splash. We got to move up. We have to be as aggressive as possible. That, to me, felt like a bit of a desperation draft.
I'll say this. When you have two people running your organization, you have nobody running your organization. It's kind of like what people always say about quarterbacks. You have two, you have none. And my thing with Denver right now is, look, no question Sean Payton's got a lot of pull in that building. He wasn't going to take that job if he didn't. But my issue with it is, then if that's the case, then why is George Payton even employed? Then what is the point? Then just let Sean Payton run the franchise. I mean, if that's what you want to do, or if that's what's going to happen, then let it happen. Because to have two guys in the – and I thought that was one of the biggest problems that the Raiders had for years with Mayock and Gruden. Is it Gruden's pick? Is it Mayock's pick? Who wins out if there's an argument? Well, Gruden's going to win. He's got a $100 million contract. And it's the same thing in Denver. Sean Payton's going to win every argument because Sean Payton can sit there and tell George Payton, look, I've got more job security than you do. They just gave up picks for me, and they gave me a massive contract, and what I want goes. And so I always think it just becomes, it's very, you have a competing visions. You could sit there and say all day that you have the same vision. No two people in life have the exact same vision. And it creates this little bit of an indecision. So I looked at Denver's draft and said, I don't even dislike the players necessarily, but the fit within that roster, I look at it and go, you're not better. Nothing made you better. And you got to get a hell of a lot better in a conference that you look around, and there aren't too many teams that are going to be losing double-digit games in that conference. It is a very competitive AFC, and I don't think Denver helped itself enough.
Matt, one non-draft question for you, and we got to get out of here. So just in a word, Jordan Love's fifth-year option, do the Packers pick it up, yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they do too. If you move down from Aaron Rodgers, you better have a long-term plan. Matt Verderame covers the entire NFL for Sports Illustrated. You can find his work in the magazine and on SI.com. You can also find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame, and he joins us every Monday here on 580 Sports Talk to talk all things NFL. Matt, glad you had a good time in Kansas City. Take a little bit of a rest now that the draft is over. Work off some of those burnt ends, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good, guys. Take care.
That is Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated joining us here on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. We're going to get to our least favorite drafts, biggest surprises next hour. But I will say real quick about the Broncos, and I mentioned it there. I even put this on Twitter. Like, that felt like a draft where George Payton knew my ass is grass if this doesn't work.
They traded a future third to go up and get the first white cornerback since Jason Sehorn. It felt like a desperation draft. I think you put it very well.
Let's get to a break. We'll come back, talk more draft to lead off the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you. Thanks so much for being a part of the show today. Appreciate Matt Verderame stopping by last hour to talk all things NFL draft, as we do, well, NFL to some degree anyway, every Monday with Matt. If you missed that interview or any part of the first hour of the show, head to our website. That's 580wibw.com. Head to the podcasts tab and then click on 580 Sports Talk. That's where you'll find the hour-by-hour edition of the show. Coming up in this hour of the program, we'll get to our thoughts on the NFL draft overall, not just from the Chiefs' perspective. Favorite classes, worst classes, what surprised you? And the question Dan asked Matt, I think, is extremely interesting with the benefit of looking back and having hindsight and retrospect. How unpredictable was this draft in all actuality? We heard all week it's going to be crazy. No one knows what's going to happen. This is going to be unbelievable. What was it? I don't know. Like, there's always, whoa, I can't believe this guy slid. Whoa, this guy was drafted way earlier than I thought. But, like, I don't know. Rashee Rice wasn't a top 10 pick. Like, he was late second round. Like, okay, yeah, it's not really that shocking. So we'll talk about that here just momentarily. Also this hour, we'll get to the local guys, where they're going, where they fit. A couple of Washburn players are going to try out with the Chiefs. 4 K-Staters got drafted, plus a number of guys who ended up undrafted free agents for both KU and for K-State, including one player that, if I had to guess, is absolutely going to make a team. I think there is one player, a very local player, who I think is going to make the NFL team he signed to as a free agent. We'll talk about that later this hour. Plus, our first What Is Wrong With You of the week and of the month, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. It's all coming up. We, of course, are taking your texts. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. Also the same as the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline number. And we will take your comments on YouTube. Our channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. Go subscribe if you haven't already. We put out a ton of video stuff over the weekend for the NFL draft. We did live reactions to the Chiefs picks in rounds 2 and 3, and we were on for the entirety of round 1. 4 full hours of myself, of Dan, of Jake, of Fulton. It did not feel like 4 hours. It was a lot of fun, a lot of good stuff we got to, a lot of just joking around, reacting to all the picks.
It was fun. It was it was a fun hang, and if you tuned into it, hopefully that's what it felt like, just kind of getting to hang out with the 4 of us. It got a little loose. We were snacking and enjoying some beverages, and I was playing video games at one point, and it was a good time.
It's like a Twitch stream.
Except you didn't actually get to see me play PGA 2K23.
But no, it was a lot of fun. Go check that out. The YouTube shorts, our 2 most viewed ones ever, went up this weekend talking about some of the Chiefs draft picks. So go check it out. It's all on our YouTube, and the video content going to keep coming out all over the course of the summer. Again, our channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. Aside from the Chiefs, or I guess the Chiefs could be factored into this because I think the Chiefs did have a good draft. Overall, what were a couple of your favorite, or maybe your most favorite class coming out of the draft where you said, dang, this team killed it?
The Indianapolis Colts, to me, had the best draft.
Interesting. I know why, but that's an interesting pick.
So the Colts and their GM, Chris Ballard, I think just took it upon themselves to say, we are going to take the freakiest athletes that we can possibly take. Because when you think about the Colts, that is not a thing that you have thought of in recent years. You have not thought of a particularly athletic football team.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some good teams. It certainly looked like they were pointing in the right direction with Andrew Luck. Then that whole thing happened. They've tried to patch over that with veteran quarterbacks to limited success. And everybody knew they were in the market for a quarterback in this draft. And I was still surprised he ended up with Anthony Richardson, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think he will end up being the best quarterback in this class. His combination of size, athleticism, his arm strength, and I think his ability to learn, and also his youth. I think there's so much room for him to grow. I think Anthony Richardson will be the best quarterback in this class. I may be wrong, but I've got a really good feeling about Anthony Richardson. I will bet on the athleticism. I will bet on the size. Do you see that picture of Bryce Young meeting Brian Banks for the first time?
Yeah.
Brian Banks looked like he could eat Bryce Young. Like a chicken wing. Like pick him up by one foot and just eat him. Just take all the meat off and leave nothing but bone. I worry about that for Bryce Young, even though I think he's a gifted player. I don't have those same concerns about Anthony Richardson. I don't. So I think he's the best quarterback in the class. Colts got him at 4. Then they get Julius Brents in the second round. Love that pick. We have talked at length about Julius Brents. He goes mid-second round. Again, athletically, the length on Julius Brents, the length of his arms, I think that he is going to be a top-end starter in this league. The potential is there for him to be a top-end starter in this league based upon his athleticism. Josh Downs, crazy athlete at wide receiver. Blake Freeland, one of the most athletic offensive linemen in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Adetomo Adebare from Northwestern, one of the most athletic defensive linemen in the draft.
KC kid.
And yeah, North Kansas City kid. A lot of people thought, hey, he could sneak into the end of the first round. He could be a day 2 pick. They got him middle of the 4th.
Yeah, I had him going to the Eagles at 30. Whoops.
Like, I love what the Colts did. They stocked up on athletes, and I think it's going to pay off big for them.
I mean, it's a worthwhile gamble, right? Because if it works with Anthony Richardson, you've got the guy with the highest ceiling of anyone in this class. Bryce Young is my favorite quarterback in the class. I thought C.J. Stroud was a good prospect too. And I think there is bust potential with Anthony Richardson. And that sounds meaner than I mean it too. Like, I'm certainly not rooting for the guy to fail by no means at all. I just think when you look at what he was in college, if he can't figure out the accuracy and I'm not going to get into the whole, well, he can't process thing because there's some real dog whistling that goes on with that. But I think it was clear that there was a lot of quarterback development that Anthony Richardson could use. And a lot of that problem is because he went to Florida, which has been quarterback. Why don't you go do a bunch of non-quarterback things for us and try to make it work for like 5 years now? Emory Harris was like that. Who is the other one? Oh, no, Treon Harris and Emory
Jones.
Emory Jones. Yeah. All of those guys. Way better athletes and should have been better college quarterbacks, but they had incompetent coaching between Dan Mullen just not caring and Billy Napier being too busy hiring 945 analysts instead of actually drawing up game plans. So the potential is higher than Stroud. It is higher than Young. It's higher than Levis. It's higher than any other quarterback in this class. And if they hit on that, you got the best quarterback in the class, no doubt. I think Richardson is not likely to hit. Like, he's okay. Like, I don't see him being Jimmy Garoppolo or Kirk Cousins or something like that. I think there's too many athletic gifts for him to just be okay. And I think he's a better thrower than like a Terrell Pryor, who was a great athlete and a great runner, but he never quite made it work in the NFL long-term as a passer. I think he's got a higher ceiling than that. So if they hit on these dudes, it's far and away the Colts. Ones that stood out to me, Matt mentioned the Pittsburgh Steelers. I thought they had a great draft. Broderick Jones was a good pick. They get the storybook pick with the first pick of the second round and Joey Porter Jr. Then everyone got to see pictures of him celebrating the Super Bowl with his dad when he was a little kid, which was super cool. Keanu Benton was a name that came up. That was middle of the second round, Wisconsin defensive lineman. I saw a lot of draft people say in the weeks leading up to this weekend, I like that player. I like that player a lot. And maybe he doesn't have quite Jalen Carter's gifts and explosion and things like that, but just a really good football player in the middle. That's a very Steelers pick. That's the replacement for Cam Hayward in the next year or two. Darnell Washington is maybe the most fascinating pick in the entire draft to me. Medicals were apparently not just iffy. Apparently they were bad, like major concern. And, you know, there were rumors about some teams didn't like him in the interview. I don't know. I feel like if you get too far into that, you get into some real murky waters with what's actually real and what is putting a kid down for things out of their control. So whatever. He, in terms of skill position players, probably has as much upside as he's the Anthony Richardson of skill position players in this draft, where the bust potential is there because it's just so, you know, what can he be? What is he going to be? But he's already a great run blocker. He's got incredible speed. His hands need work, but if you can work on his hands and his route running, he's going to be a freak. He's going to be an incredible player. Matt Canada is going to have him running jet sweeps. They're going to run jet sweeps to Darnell Washington in Pittsburgh. It's absolutely going to happen. So I loved their draft. I thought that Baltimore had a good draft because Baltimore always drafts well.
Yeah.
There are a handful of teams that you just know going in, yeah, they're going to do a good job with that. And Baltimore is one of those teams.
Philadelphia is another one.
Yeah. The Eagles or the Bulldogs?
The Philadelphia Bull Eagles or Eagle Dogs or whichever you prefer. You know, you and I, we do not have the luxury of like the full scouting background or the ability to like be on site and watch dozens of games and
Right.
inhale all this film and talk to the players. What we have, what you and I have, what any of you listening have is the ability to sit on your couch on Saturday and turn on a college football game. And one of the things, an experience that I had, an experience you had, Brendan, I am sure, an experience that many of you listening probably had, was sitting down on a Saturday the past couple of years and watching the Georgia Bulldogs, and particularly watching their defense and thinking, man, all those guys rule. All those guys are awesome. All of those guys are utter terrifying menaces and are probably going to be really good in the NFL. You know who had that same experience? Howie Roseman, general manager of the Philadelphia Eagles, because he's got all of those guys now.
He's a Florida grad, too. And he's like, man, people are not, the alumni association is not going to like me because I took all these Georgia players. But seriously, that's smart. And they didn't take any Georgia players this year, but the Packers done that the last 2 years. Eric Stokes, cornerback, Devontae Wyatt, defensive lineman, Quay Walker, linebacker. And the Eagles have now done it to an extreme degree, even beyond that. They're trading for Georgia Bulldogs now. They traded for DeAndre Swift. They're saying, okay, so this is the best team in college football with the best defense specifically in college football. They've got the best athletes who all had, a lot of them have NFL pedigree, or they've just been freak athletes their whole life. They were trained well. They played well in college. Let's just add those guys.
Yeah.
That's smart. Like, that's not how goofy. No, that's just a smart plan.
They say the scouting is an inexact science, but sometimes it is simple as, wow, that guy's really good. I should take him. That's how the Cincinnati Bengals built their offense.
Yeah.
It's just watching the dudes in the SEC light it up and say, oh, man, that guy's awesome. We should draft that player for our team. And that's how they get T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. And the Eagles have done the same thing, just watching Georgia football and say, yeah, all of those guys look like they're bulls in china shops. Let's get as many of them as we can. And then they got 2 of them in the first round.
I can't believe Nolan Smith fell that far. I loved Nolan Smith going into this. Mark on the YouTube comments says he thought that the Jags did pretty well. Jacksonville got 2 of my favorite offensive players. Tank Bigsby with the 88th overall pick. I would have rather had Tank Bigsby than Jahmyr Gibbs. I like Jahmyr Gibbs. I do. Not at number 12. I would have rather taken Bigsby later. So I like that. Parker Washington from Penn State, I think might be the steal of the draft, a wide receiver. He was awesome at Penn State. And tell you what, he made the Packers' new backup quarterback look a lot better. Freaking Sean Clifford. I don't know what that pick was.
I didn't love their second-round pick, Brenton Strange. I mean, while we're talking about him.
Another Penn Stater.
I thought that was kind of a weird pick at 61 overall. With some of the other tight ends who were on the board at that time. Anton Harrison, obviously, we talked plenty about, and they all of a sudden needed a tackle. Lost one to free agency. They're going to lose one to a PED suspension, it sounds like. So that made that a need for them. Okay draft.
Yeah, that's solid overall. I thought your team and my team both had good drafts. I thought Seattle ending up getting Jackson Smith and Jigba was a big deal. You know, it's one of those things that makes you wonder, and I think naturally, were we missing something? Like, this was a down year for top-end wide receivers, but it was still like, he was clearly the number 1 guy who would have been a first-round pick any year. Why did he fall to 20? And it makes you wonder, was something else up? But then, like, I said this last week, the Rose Bowl game in 2022, New Year's Day 2022, is the best wide receiver game I've ever seen in my entire life. Any level of football. It was remarkable.
I understand that he is probably just a slot guy in the NFL. I don't, just physically. And I also understand that he didn't play last year. He had the hamstring injury, and that kept him off the field. I get all that. On the other hand, watch the freaking tape when he does play. Just watch what he does.
I'm also a believer in big slot receivers. Like, I like dudes who are big, running snaps out of the slot. If you run slot fades, if you're the Seahawks, Pete Carroll and Shane Waldron.
Yeah.
If you run a slot fade with DK Metcalf as your slot and Jackson Smith and Jigba outside of him, you will never throw an incomplete pass. One of those two will be open every single time. Like, it's the perfect combination. Oh, and by the way, you've got still Tyler Lockett. who's older and still awesome.
Yes.
He's just phenomenal.
They should have one of the best wide receiver trios in the league next year. I love the Devin Witherspoon pick. Watch his highlights for 30 seconds and you go, oh, yeah, that's a Seahawk. If you know anything about, the last 10 years of Seahawks football, the Pete Carroll years and what they like their defensive players to be, that is a Seahawk. Of course, it wouldn't be a Seahawks draft without them doing something really weird, like take a running back in the second round the year after you took a running back in the second round. But Zach Charbonnet complements the Kenneth Walker skill set. That feels like intentional, like a thunder and lightning tandem that you can do. Charbonnet between the tackles and Walker for the more explosive stuff. And I loved day 3 for Seattle. I think Olu Oluwatimi can start at center for them in the long haul. Cameron Young, I thought, was a really good draft at defensive tackle. They needed a plugger, a run stopper up front. I think he can offer them that. I thought the Mike Morris pick from Michigan was a really good pick in that regard too. So solid day all around for Seattle. I thought solid draft. Green Bay, they went with 2 tight ends in the second round, but like
1 second, 1/3, but day 2.
Day 2. Yeah, day 2, not round 2.
Let me tell you what, I freaking love it. In my veins. I love the Packers draft. There were a couple weird ones. Again, Sean Clifford in the 5th round, like he's not being drafted to play. He's being drafted to be a scout team guy.
The run on extremely mid college quarterbacks in the 4th, like Stetson Bennett went in the 4th round.
Yeah, that was dumb. That was very stupid. That's a tank job. Honest to God, I think that might be a tank job. The Rams, I don't know if you saw this. They signed 24 undrafted free agents.
That's a lot.
Matt Stafford's neck might not work. Like, I genuinely think the Rams are putting this in the tank so they can go get Caleb Williams or Drake May. Hopefully Caleb Williams. I didn't understand that. The Eagles drafted Tanner McKee. That was dumb. Like, they had a great draft, but that was dumb because Tanner McKee stunk. I don't know why they made that pick. So the Packers took Sean Clifford. That was weird. They also took Anders Carlson, who is good at Auburn, but the scouting report from NFL.com said that he can't kick over 50 yards, struggles with consistency. And then he admitted he doesn't know how to kick in cold weather, which is kind of a problem when you kick in Green Bay, Wisconsin for half the year. But other than that, Lucas Van Ness, I called that one in our mock drafts. Good fit there. They took 2 tight ends and 3 wide receivers. Maybe now people will stop saying, oh, they hate wide receivers, don't they? Shut up. That's stupid and dumb, and I hate it. Stop it. They had a great draft, I thought. Also, Tucker Kraft, they took a South Dakota State tight end who wore like Carhartt and Patagonia at his draft party and chose to stay in South Dakota instead of transferring to Alabama. If that's not a Green Bay pick, I don't know what is.
That's a Packer, all right.
On the flip side, worst drafts. I understand the argument for Detroit. Like, we are just going to take the best players we have available. We don't care about positional value. We're just going to take the best players. We think Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the best players in the draft. We're going to take him. Same with Jack Campbell. Same with Brian Branch, the safety. I mean, he was the best safety, but the safety class was awful. And then Sam Laporta, the tight end. I understand the logic, but here's the problem. You're now going to pay Jahmyr Gibbs, and Mina Kimes kind of pointed this out on Twitter, approximately the same amount that Philadelphia is paying Rashad Penny and DeAndre Swift. 2 guys who are injured a lot, but established in the NFL. And you're going to pay the same to a guy who's never taken an NFL snap. That's not smart business. He might be a good player, and I liked him as a prospect, but that's just not smart business.
Yeah, you could talk about, well, we don't care about positional value. Well, everyone else does. Have you considered maybe there's a reason? And like, if there's a franchise who has not earned the benefit of the doubt to get to zig while everyone else is zagging, isn't it the Detroit Lions who have won 1 playoff game in my life?
Yeah. 91, right?
91.
Yeah. I don't get it. And I get why a Lions fan would defend it. Look how well we played the back half of last year. Dan Campbell's got this thing working. Like, we need good players to supplement what we're already building. I get why a Lions fan would say that. You just took the second best running back in the draft at 12. Why don't you just, and that was after trading around. Why not just stay where you were and take a better player in Bijan Robinson? Like, why did you even bother moving back? I thought it was a bizarre draft by Detroit, to be honest with you.
Another team whose draft I didn't love, although I loved a certain 6th round pick they made quite a bit. And we'll talk about that later on. I think Dallas had a very good draft.
Okay.
Like I didn't understand the Mozzie Smith in the first round hype, even though it sounds like Kansas City really liked him.
Mhm.
I didn't understand it. Like athletically, yes, but what is he? If it doesn't work out to the best of his ability, is he a 3-down defensive tackle? I don't think he is. So I thought that was a bit of a reach at 26. I thought Luke Schoonmaker was a reach at 58 with better tight ends still on the board. They went DeMarvion Overshown at 90 overall. Like, I think he's fine. I don't see a lot of impact players in that Dallas draft.
What position is DeMarvion Overshown playing in the NFL?
It's a great question.
I have no idea. Good athlete. His relative athletic score checked in at an 807, so 8.07 out of 10. That's good. He's tall, not very heavy. In fact, he was in the lower percentiles in terms of weight. Good straight line speed, but what is he doing in the NFL? I don't know, and I don't know that the Cowboys know. And it feels like they kind of tried to do Micah Parsons, but linebacker and safety instead of linebacker and edge rusher. Micah Parsons is one of the best players in the league. DeMarvion Overshown he's fine, but that was a weird pick in the third round. I thought their day 3 was okay, fine. Deuce Vaughn, I love that.
Like the Deuce Vaughn pick very much on its own merits, aside from the great story that is, I like it on its own merits. But also, they also have Kevontae Turpin. Did they just draft somebody who's a little bit redundant?
Yeah, they may have. That's a good point.
So, yeah, I didn't love Dallas's draft. Matt Verderame went hard on Denver's draft, which I thought was pretty humorous.
Yeah.
We were all very much pro Marvin Mims around here. Nobody more so than Jake.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a good pick at 63 for them. But there's so good a draft you can really have at 5 total picks. I did think it was funny they traded out of next year's third round into this year's third round to go get Riley Moss. That was funny to me.
That was very funny. I thought the Vikings had a weird draft. You heard me talk about how much I loved Jordan Addison and how much I wanted Jordan Addison in Kansas City because I thought he'd be a great fit. So that was a good pick at 23. They didn't pick again till the end of the third round, the compensatory picks, and they took a 7th round corner. No one talked about Mekhi Blackman being a day 2 pick or even an early day 3 pick, and they took him at 102. That was kind of a weird pick to me. I thought they had a very iffy draft. What I forgot to mention, and I really haven't seen a lot of talk about it, I thought the Cincinnati Bengals actually had a pretty good draft. Miles Murphy, I thought, was better than his draft position. I thought he was a top 20 player. He goes at 28. DJ Turner from Michigan, good player, good prospect. Jordan Battle, safety, They take Charlie Jones from Purdue. Maybe not the flashiest player, but if you watched any Big Ten football last year or the last couple of years, you thought, oh my God, that guy, he's just open all the time and he catches everything.
It's amazing that the Patriots didn't get a hold of Charlie Jones.
It really is.
For a lot of reasons.
Yeah. Chase Brown from Illinois, best running back in the Big Ten, or among the best running backs in the Big Ten last year. Love that pick. Andre Iacivas, he was the true draft guy, my guy for everyone over the last year because he played at Princeton. He was a gold medal track athlete. And he has a perfect RAS score too. Now, can he do anything but run go routes? I don't know. Maybe not. But he's got such a crazy athletic profile. I actually really liked the Bengals draft.
Yeah, getting Murphy at 28 was a coup for them. And then they addressed the secondary where they've taken a lot of hits this offseason with 2 good players, I thought, in Turner and Battle.
Did anything genuinely surprise you in this draft?
Levis sliding, not in the sense that I thought he was a slam dunk top 5 talent. I most certainly do not think that about Will Levis. But the draft industrial process had me convinced that there was a team that loved him enough and was going to take him early, and then it didn't happen until the second round. So yes, that did surprise me. I'm sure it surprised Will Levis. I'm sure it surprised all those people who took that random dude on Reddit seriously and thought he was going to go number 1 and put real American dollars on that outcome happening at their favorite sports books. That was a little surprising to me. But beyond that, it was pretty obvious which players, if you go back and look at the typical mock draft, it's hard to nail pick and, where each player goes. it's hard to get that right, even for the people who devote their whole lives and careers to knowing the draft and projecting the draft. But all the guys who went in the first round kind of felt like they were first round picks.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, there wasn't a lot of, oh, wow, I cannot believe. Even Jahmyr Gibbs, at 12, that was bonkers. That was the biggest surprise pick of the draft in that sense. But I think most people kind of thought he had a chance to go in the first round at some point.
Yeah.
The only player I think who did go in the first round that I never saw mocked in the first round, and that doesn't mean that it never happened, it just means I didn't see it, was Jack Campbell.
Agreed.
And that was just because who takes a linebacker in the first round?
But honestly, you swap Campbell for Joey Porter Jr., who ended up being pick 32, which every other year would have been a first-round pick. Yeah, I mean, every guy who got picked looked like a first-rounder. I like Will Levis a lot more to the Titans in the second round than the first round. I thought the Titans ended up pretty good because now, look, if Levis stinks or Tannehill stink, they're going to be in the running for one of those two quarterbacks next year. Or that ends up being okay, and it works out, and they still got a really good offensive tackle at the top of the draft in Peter Skoronski. So I didn't think it was as unpredictable as everyone made it out to be.
There were a lot of trades.
Tons of trades.
And
a record, I believe.
Yeah, and there was chaos in that sense. But, yeah, it didn't feel like there were a bunch of guys who slid or a bunch of guys who jumped high up into the first round. It was pretty predictable as far as these things go on that front.
Let's get to a quick timeout. We'll talk about some local players and where they either got drafted to or signed to as free agents coming up in a few minutes. But first, we've got the first What Is Wrong With You of the week coming up next on 580 Sports Talk.
the hell? What the hell?
Back on 580 Sports Talk with the first What Is Wrong With You of the month of May and also for this week. Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications, which saves time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to metal. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. We found our monthly champion for April this past Thursday, live from the NFL Draft. That is when we ended up choosing the world's largest toll hater, the guy who didn't want to pay tolls on his motorcycle. So he took his license plate off. Then he got pulled over by a sheriff's deputy. And when the deputy stepped out of his car, the guy hit the gas on his motorcycle and ran him over. And then he said, sorry, bro. I just, I didn't want to get in trouble. Well, now you're in bigger trouble. You could have just paid your toll. You could have just paid a $116 non-moving violation. Instead, you might go to jail for 5 years and pay $5,000. Real smart, real brain genius there. My story is going to take us to Cleveland Heights Golf Course in Lakeland, Florida. So during the Masters recently, there was some talk and chatter and discussion about Patrick Cantlay and the fact that he is a very slow golfer.
There's a lot of
very slow golfer.
It's a lot of slow players on tour, but Cantlay is kind of the face of it right now.
So we're heading down to Lakeland, and we've got a video here. Unfortunately, we obviously cannot show you that, although, Dan, I would definitely recommend you take a look at this. Some folks were playing golf at the Cleveland Heights Golf Course, and, well, no one wanted to play behind the slow guy. And one group decided to confront the slow group in front of them. And it starts with some talking and some swearing and, just, hey, pick it up, you know what, etc. And then after a few short pushed back and then kicks. Not like a real intense roundhouse kick, like he actually knew what he was doing, but like he was trying to punt the guy like a football. And from there, it goes off the rails. We've got guys kind of grabbing each other, sort of boxing, hugging. We have some two guys tumbling in between some trees. We got other people on golf carts driving up. Now, about 20 seconds in, two of the gentlemen are squaring up like they're about to box, and they're circling each other. One is even holding his hands back, and then pow! Right to the face, straight right. Then another guy kicks and falls down and loses his shoe. It's a whole mess. Isn't golf supposed to be a gentlemanly sport? Why are you fighting on the golf course?
Nothing funnier than like middle-aged, out-of-shape men. And look, I am one of those things and two of those things and very close to being the third. So I'm not judging, but there's nothing funnier than those dudes deciding we need to fight.
And they did.
Yes.
You're going too slow.
I am not far away from receiving the AARP magazine in the mail, but right now I need to throw hands at this golf course.
We have a comment here on YouTube. This one is from Mark, who says that sounds like Caddyshack stuff. Speaking of Caddyshack, would you mind sending me? Well, hold on. Let me make sure there's not an ad on this video. 1 second here. There's not. Okay. Would you mind giving me audio here, Dan?
Go for it.
Late.
Yeah, let's restart.
Hey, everybody, we're all going to get late.
Yeah!
one of the great closing lines of any film.
It's
right up there with Frankly, My Dear, I Don't Give a Damn. And
also from Matt on YouTube, referencing the Bob Barker and Happy Gilmore fight. I cannot say the last word in this line, but it starts with "the price is wrong."
Yeah. No, the price was wrong. Look,
now you're going to get it, Bobby.
Look, it is not cool to play slow. And sometimes like you play slow because you're not any good and you're looking for your ball all day. And
that's me.
Like, yeah, you got to speed up. You can't find your ball in short order. Tough luck. You shouldn't have bought such expensive balls. Put down a Kirkland Signature 1 and continue your round. Just, hand wedge it onto a decent lie in the rough and take your stroke penalty and keep it rolling. You're not playing the U.S. Open. Right. Some people play slow because they've seen on TV, oh, I'm going to do the aim point on the putting green and I'm going to walk around my putt and judge my putt for 2.5 minutes. No, dude, you don't need to do that. You're playing for $5 a hole. Like, chill.
You also likely have no idea what you're doing.
But there is also an element of it is, especially, I don't know if this is a weekend round or what's going on here, but if you go to the golf course when there are a lot of other people on the golf course, it's going to take a while. Like, you have to, and, maybe they should have let them play through. There's longer discussion you could have here, but it doesn't need to be this.
No,
is what I'm getting to. It does not ever need to resort to this.
So that is what Matt has described as the par 4 punchers on the YouTube comment
Pretty
section. What's your story today, Dan?
So we are going across the pond. We are going to Groningen in the Netherlands.
No.
And the Groningen police pulled over a drunk driver on Sunday. And the driver, as you're supposed to do, handed over his identification. And his identification showed him to be the former Prime Minister of England, Boris Johnson.
Oh.
It was a driver's license from the Ukraine issued to Boris Johnson with a portrait of the former Prime Minister looking his typically disheveled self. If you know Boris Johnson, like Google, there was never a picture where he looked like put together.
Man has never seen a comb.
Yeah, like
in his life.
That's his whole thing. The disheveled former prime minister. Like that'll be one of the first lines in the man's obituary someday. Anyhow, obviously it was not real. It was not actually Boris Johnson. The gentleman had purchased a fake license in a souvenir shop in the Ukraine. Apparently, that's the thing you can do, is buy a very official, very convincing looking Ukraine driver's license with a famous person on it. One Twitter user says that she has fake Ukrainian, is that correct?
Ukrainian
driver's licenses of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and former German Arch Chancellor Angela Merkel. Sorry. This gentleman bought the Boris Johnson, and it's got his correct birth date on it. And
I do believe it says it expires in the year 3000, though,
yes,
which
it does.
Can't be real.
The expiration date is 12/12/3000. That raised some alarm bells, along with the fact that the man didn't look nothing like Boris Johnson. So the police confiscated the fake license and fined the driver.
Worst super bad remake ever.
Yeah, he could have just rolled around with like the McLovin license.
Yeah.
Then everybody could have at least had a good laugh.
I feel like in Europe, it's easier to get caught with a European dignitary. Like, why not put an American on there? Yeah, if you put, McLovin on there, maybe it works.
It's one thing to do the fake ID thing and hand over a fake ID to the officers. I'm sure we have a listener or two that maybe tried that in college to try and get into certain establishments that allow you to purchase alcohol. But typically, bad idea to do it when the person you are impersonating was at one point one of the most visible people in the world in geopolitics.
All right, who's the winner for today?
Got to go with the guys fighting at the golf course.
Yeah, that's really funny. The kicking is the best part. Just completely flailing with their legs. I like that one a lot. The par 4 punchers, they are our winners today in the first What Is Wrong With You for this month. Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply. You can find them on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Let's get to a quick timeout. When we come back, where are our local college football players going to be playing NFL ball? We'll discuss that next on 580 Sports Talk. Dan back with you on 580 Sports Talk. Thanks so much for joining us on this Monday afternoon. No Royals baseball to get to tonight. We're going to give away
mercifully.
Yeah, they need a break. We need a break too. We will have Royals tickets to give away tomorrow, though. So even if you're not feeling great about your hometown baseball team, they may not even be your favorite baseball team right now. But no matter how you're feeling about them, you can't beat a day out in the sun, enjoying baseball, having a hot dog, hanging out with friends, whatever it might be. So we will have some Royals tickets to give away tomorrow afternoon on 580 Sports Talk. We already talked earlier during Good, Bad, and Ugly about the guys from K-State who ended up getting drafted. Felix to the Chiefs, Julius Brents to the Colts, Josh Hayes to the Bucks, Deuce Vaughn to the Cowboys. All their hometown teams, every single one of them. Deuce Vaughn's dad even works for the Cowboys, which the call, I know we talked about it earlier, but it was just so cool, and you could see how emotional he got making it. And this wasn't like a nepotism draft pick either, because Chris Vaughn was not allowed in the room whenever they would talk about Deuce. He was not allowed to be there, which is the way you're supposed to handle those things. Just so cool for that family, and so cool for all these guys that they get to go to their hometown teams. Who's the best fit of the four?
That's an interesting question. I think Brent's, in the sense that I think he might have a chance to start right away there in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to remake some things and get more athletic as a team, and I think that their draft sort of betrays that is their strategy, because they just went with who's the best athlete we can take at this position at this spot in the draft. So I think Brent's is a really good fit. I will be interested to see what kind of fit Deuce is with the Cowboys, because they've got little return guy already. They got Kevontae Turpin, who's really good at the things that he does. And Deuce Vaughn wasn't a returner in college, but that doesn't mean that wasn't a role he could have found himself in the pros. Tony Pollard looks like he's set to be the feature back for them. I know he's coming off injury, but he should be ready to go. He'll be the feature back. They haven't loved using Pollard around the goal line. I don't think Deuce is a goal line back. Like, what role does he carve out in that offense will be interesting to see. Does he run some snaps from the slot as a wide receiver? Do they use him in the return game in some fashion?
Yeah, maybe use Turpin for one kicks or punts and Deuce for the other.
There were other teams that could have drafted Deuce that I think he would have had like a clearer fit or like a clearer path towards this is what he's going to be, this is what he's going to do. With Cowboys, he might have to carve that out himself a little bit, but Deuce Vaughn, I don't believe, would want it any other way, because he's had to prove himself to people his entire life. Who, like, would we be saying these things about him if he was 5'10", 5'11"?
Even 5'8" or 5'9", probably.
Yeah, maybe not. But that's what he has to overcome, but he's no stranger to that.
No, so cool for him. So for K-State, those are the draft picks. They also had a bunch of UDFAs. I may have missed a couple of these, but Malik Knowles to the Vikings, Ty Zentner going to the Eagles, more on him in a second, Adrian Martinez to the Lions. I'm interested in, it might just be, let's get some bodies in here and see how camp goes.
They just want quarterbacks in their mid-20s to hang out and vibe together.
Apparently. Cade Warner to the Buccaneers. Echo Boydo is going to work out with the Chiefs. And
another local kid.
That's right. Lawrence he was Free State, but from Lawrence. And Sammy Wheeler got a tryout with the Bears as well. I think Ty Zentner is going to make and start for the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think Aaron Sipsas is coming back, because he got hurt at the end of last year, and then he returned, and he was not good. I mean, you remember when he punted directly to Kadarius Toney?
I do remember that.
Resulted in one of the most important plays of a Super Bowl loss for the Eagles. I don't think Sipsas is coming back for them. I think Ty Zentner is going to make that team. Now, he's not going to kick, because Lyons Township High School great Jake Elliott ain't giving up that job. He's also getting paid a ton of money. But I do think Ty Zentner is going to make that team. The Kansas Jayhawks, they had a few players end up signing as true free agents who got signing bonuses and all that. Lonnie Phelps to the Browns. I like that for him. Earl Bostic to the Cowboys. And Caleb Sampson also signed on with the Colts. I don't know what Lonnie Phelps' deal was for, by the way. The Cowboys gave Earl Bostic $200,000 guaranteed. That's not like crazy for an undrafted free agent because every once in a while there's a guy who makes, closer to $500,000, but $200K upfront guaranteed for an undrafted player is pretty nice. That's pretty good for Earl. And then Malcolm Lee actually got 2 different rookie minicamp invites. So he's going to go work out for both the Giants and the Bills.
That's wild.
Kind of cool, right? Like, yeah, two bites at the apple.
Now, let's go ahead and lay out, Brendan, for the people who might not know the difference between being an undrafted free agent and getting a rookie minicamp invite, what the distinction is.
Yeah. So the difference is if you sign as an undrafted free agent, that first word is the most imperative of them. You are a member of the roster. They brought you on, and you are on the 90-man roster as of now. So Lonnie Phelps with the Browns or Cade Warner with the Bucks, just an example, those guys are on the 90-man rosters for both of those teams. Whereas Malcolm Lee getting minicamp invites, he is not rostered right now. He's going to get a doubled number when he shows up at minicamp next week or 2 weeks or whenever, and he will essentially just be getting a tryout with the team. Now, that doesn't always work out, but sometimes it does. Darius Shepard, who's now in the XFL, from North Dakota State, I know he was a rookie minicamp invite for the Packers in 2019, and he ended up making the roster, and he was on the team that year. So it does happen. It's not super common, but it does happen. So it's signed to the bottom of the roster versus a tryout, essentially.
And one other point that I think is worth making here, being an undrafted, the difference between being an undrafted free agent and being a 6th or 7th round draft pick, some people will tell you it's almost better to be an undrafted free agent because you get to choose where you end up.
Yep.
Like a lot of those premium undrafted free agents, like the guys who sign right away, they have had teams telling them all along, hey, we're not going to draft you, but we'd really like to sign you. We're not going to draft you, but at the end of the draft, be by your phone. We're going to make you an offer. But if you're an undrafted free agent, you can look at that team and say, you know what? I like my opportunity better elsewhere. You get to choose where you end up. And so in some ways, it's a preferable situation for a guy like Lonnie Phelps or a guy like Earl Bostic Jr. to have been able to maybe weigh some options and go places where, like, Lonnie Phelps goes to the Browns. Browns only have, 5 draft picks? So he's not competing with that many rookies. He might have a real opportunity there, as opposed to, like, if you were a 7th round pick of the Rams, you're coming in with 13 other draft picks.
So it's a good opportunity for a lot of these guys, and you can make it. You can absolutely make it as a undrafted free agent. If you sign with the Rams, you're apparently already going to start on opening day too, because they have no other real roster. Also, Dan, you mentioned this earlier, but we should note too, 2 Washburn wide receivers, Peter.
It's Affle.
It is Affle?
I think so.
Okay. Well, okay. Peter Affle, you know who we're talking about. And then also JJ Letcher, both Kansas kids, both going to try out with the Chiefs. They got rookie minicamp invites. That's so cool for the 2 of them. I have heard, I don't know about Peter's situation. I know the rumor is JJ has gotten interest from the Great White North, that there are CFL teams who are very interested in JJ's abilities. So I'm sure both would love to make it on the Chiefs or any NFL roster. But that's the beautiful thing about having, 2 spring football leagues, and there's always Canada and, whatever else. There's a lot of opportunity out there, and both those dudes are good enough to play professionally somewhere. If it's not the NFL, then somewhere. Very cool for the 2 of them. And again, 2 Kansas kids too, Lawrence and KCK.
Yeah, the common theme when we're talking about some of these guys is the chance to put on the uniform for their hometown squad.
Yeah, that is absolutely awesome for a lot of those local guys. We've got to get to another timeout. We've got the news here at the top of the hour, both national and local. We'll come back, get you our 580 Sports Talk headlines to lead off the 5 o'clock hour, including today's playoff roundup. And we'll take a look at the latest on the Royals as well. That's all next hour on 580 Sports Talk.
You may have already heard about
1 hour left on 580 Sports Talk on this Monday, May 1st. Thank you so much for swinging by and spending part of your afternoon with us. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you up until 6 o'clock. No Royals baseball tonight. They're off. We'll talk some Royals a little bit later on in the hour, however, and their weekend set with the Minnesota Twins. Did you guys talk much Royals at all on Friday on Mic'd Up?
Very briefly.
Okay. They've played 3 games since then, and in 2 of them, Jordan Lyles and Brady Singer got shelled.
Yes, it did.
They've had better days. Both of
Byron
them have.
Buxton, bane of the Royals' existence.
Yeah, he unfortunately has not gotten to play a lot in his career because of injuries. When he plays, he's really freaking good.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And unfortunately for the Royals, he's been especially good against them. So we will get to some Royals baseball later on in the hour. We've also got our 580 Sports Talk headlines here in just a moment. And we will get you all that coming up here in this 5 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, plus your text, 785-272-9429. And, of course, the YouTube comment section is also open. The name of our channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. Go subscribe if you haven't already. I was momentarily sidetracked by a former K-Stater committing to his 4th program.
Is that right? Is that who is that?
Dejuan Gordon.
Oh my gosh, he still has eligibility?
I don't know how. I do not know how. Actually, is it possibly because his most recent program canceled their season? That might be why. So Dejuan Gordon committed to K-State and Bruce Weber. He lasted 2 seasons and transferred to Missouri.
Yes.
Where he lasted 1 season and then transferred to New Mexico State,
which had its own problems.
He has since left and committed to UT Arlington. Good for him. I hope it works out.
Yeah, chase the dream.
That's a lot of jerseys. I hope we got to keep them.
Right?
Like a quilt out of it or something. Jersey quilt. Man, he's gone down in conference every time.
Yeah, he has.
Like SEC is still power basketball.
Well, isn't UT Arlington the WAC?
Are they in the WAC now?
I have no idea.
They might be. Well, in which case, good for him. He gets to
the
stay
WAC,
in
or
the
they
WAC.
in the what is that other conference?
No,
Southland?
you are correct. They
Oh.
are in the WAC. Blaze the Maverick is their name of their mascot. Blaze? Why Blaze? Yeah, so in the WAC, same as New Mexico State. Well, good for them. How nice is that? Although New Mexico State is leaving that league. They're going to the Conference USA as of this year. So sorry, I was momentarily sidetracked. That does not deserve to be a part of 580 Sports Talk headlines, but it did pop into my feed right now. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Our 580 Sports Talk headlines for this first day of May on, obviously, 580 Sports Talk. We're going to go hyper-local with our first headline. The 2023 Shawnee County Sports Hall of Fame class has been announced, and it is a whopper of a class. 4 inductees for this year. They include Chris Barnes, the champion bowler, Kevin Bordewick, the many-time state champion in both girls basketball and girls volleyball, Crystal Kemp, the Topeka High and then KU great, and our good friend, the greatest in the business at what he does, Rick Peterson, Pistol himself.
That's right.
Inducted into the class for 2023. Let's start with Pistol because he's a friend of ours and he is, a friend of so many people in the community and has been doing this in Topeka for so long and has been doing it so well. He's been in the business since 1980 and has been in Topeka since 1989, started at the Cap Journal. He's been with the new project, topsports.news, ever since retiring from the CJ at the end of 2020, early in 2021. 5-time winner of the Kansas Sports Writer of the Year Award. The first sports writer to be a 2-time winner of the Oscar Stouffer Award for covering high school athletics in the state of Kansas. He's received countless other honors from the Kansas Press Association, from various coaching organizations that represent sports in the state. He is the absolute best of the best. He's a great guy. And we're going to be on late Thursday because of Royals baseball. But we're going to talk to Pistol regardless because we got to talk about this. Just what an incredible honor for such a good guy.
You know, the institutional knowledge that Pistol has for high school sports, not just in Topeka, not just in Northeast Kansas, just the stuff that he knows, the stuff that he remembers, the stuff that he saw in person is endlessly fascinating. And you and I have both had the opportunity to cover high school sports in this area. And I'll say it, we're interlopers. We didn't grow up here. A lot of people around here grew up here. And that's what makes covering high school sports in a place like Topeka so rewarding, is because it matters to people, because it's the school that you went to and that you're sending your kids to, or that your friends are sending their kids to. So there's history and there's meaning in these high school matchups, these rivalries. And if you're an interloper like me, like you don't want to sound dumb talking about this stuff, because people will clock that right away. If you're uninformed, if you don't know, if you can't properly contextualize what it is you're seeing in the now compared to what it stands up with in terms of the history of it all, the meaning of it all. If we have ever sounded smart, I'll only speak for myself, but I feel like I am speaking for you.
Yeah, that's fair.
A little bit as well. If we have ever sounded smart, knowledgeable, in tune with the high school sports scene in this city, we owe a large debt of gratitude to Rick Peterson for helping us with his institutional knowledge to contextualize and to greater appreciate what it is that we, again, have been fortunate enough to cover, me since 2016, you since the year after that.
Yeah.
So that is what I am most grateful for, and what I think about when I think of Rick Peterson is how generous that he has always been with his time, and how generous he has always been with his knowledge, and how much I appreciate the learning that I've been able to do from him in my time here.
Pistol cares so much about what he covers and what he does and the people in this community. And that's what will always stand out the most. And anyone, who works in greater journalism, like, that is what should always be the hallmark of what they do and their legacy. And it absolutely is for Pistol. So we will talk to him coming up at some point on Thursday afternoon. Again, short show that day because of Royals baseball, but we will make sure to get Pistol on the air so we can talk about this. And he'll want to talk about the sports too. I know he will want to talk about the actual action. He won't want to make it all about himself, but we will get Pistol on to talk about that. The other inductees, as I mentioned, Chris Barnes, 1988 Topeka High graduate who lettered in 3 different sports at Topeka High, and then went on to become an All-American bowler at Wichita State, and is now in the PBA, the Pro Bowlers Association, Hall of Fame. He's won over $2.4 million on the bowling tour in his career, has won a ton of different championships. He had won over 100K in 12 consecutive seasons at one point. The one-time PBA Rookie of the Year in 1998, Hall of Famer for a reason. And in PBA competition, do you know how many perfect games he's rolled? How many 300 games?
More than me.
Double nickels. 55. Hall of Famer for a reason. So that is Chris Barnes. We all know Kevin Bordewick. He is still just absolutely killing it, both for volleyball and for basketball. Between the two sports, how about 1,311 career wins, over 1,000 wins in volleyball, 282 wins in basketball. He's from Maxville originally, small town native, K-State grad. He was very successful at, I believe it was Blue Valley beforehand. Blue Rapids, not Blue Valley, Blue Rapids. Yeah. Randolph Blue Rapids. He's been a part as either an assistant or a head coach of 13 state championships total at Washburn Rural. Just an incredible career. And again, a great guy who's been very generous with both you and I over the last several years with his time. And then Crystal Kemp, another Topeka High grad from 2002, 4-year basketball letter winner. In her final year, she averaged nearly 22 points at 11 boards a game. Made it to the state tournament in her final year as well. 19-4 in her senior season at Topeka High. She was an all-state pick, and then had a 4-year career in which she scored in double figures in points every single season for the Kansas Jayhawks. She is in the top 10 in KU history in points, rebounds, field goals made, field goals attempted, field goal percentage, free throws made and attempted, and in block shots. Oh, and by the way, minutes played too. She's top 10 in everything at KU. all-time great player. She was an all Big 12 pick her senior year. All-time great Jayhawk, all-time great Topeka High Trojan. That is your Shawnee County Sports Hall of Fame class of 2023.
Well-deserved, and I, for one, am looking forward to being at this year's banquet because you know that particularly, you know, we're fortunate enough to know not just Pistol, but we've both gotten to know Kevin over the years, and the last thing they want to do is talk about themselves.
The last thing.
The last thing Kevin Bordewick wants to do is make it about himself. But that'll be a night where he gets to do that a little bit if he wants.
We will get to make it about that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Congratulations to all of those inductees, but particularly Kevin and Pistol, who have been Hall of Fame people, certainly in our dealings with them. Let's continue our 580 Sports Talk headlines. What do you say we get to a... What the hell? The whiff. Why didn't that work?
This is the Oilers goalie the other night breaking his stick, trying to clear the puck and then getting scored on.
Disaster striking. Where? I don't understand. Playoffs? This is our playoff roundup. I don't understand. I don't know why that didn't work.
That's funny.
I'm gonna have to figure out why.
It'd be like that sometimes.
Well, yeah, man, I guess it do. It really do. Anyway, we'll start with the NBA tonight as we have got the second round matchups all set, and two of them, in fact, are underway. One of them will be 2 games deep before the other in the same conference even gets started. Love NBA scheduling. It always makes so much sense. Yesterday, in Game 7 of the last first round matchup standing, the Kings and the Warriors, Steph Curry wiped his feet all over the Sacramento Kings couch and said, I'll tell you what you can do with your beam. 50 ball for Steph Curry as Golden State defeats the Sacramento Kings. So the 6 seed Warriors advance to take on the 7 seed Lakers. We get LeBron versus Steph in the playoffs. Maybe one more time, maybe not. Maybe we should just not write these guys off because they're both clearly capable of playing at an extremely high level. That is a series that has been on the mind, I'm sure, of NBA and Turner and ESPN executives. They have got to be delighted with that turn of events. A team that had 11 road wins all season wins 2 games in the at the Golden One Center to knock off the Kings. And I think what you saw in that series, particularly in that Game 7, is very clearly a team that knows what it takes to win when their back is against the wall in the playoffs, and a team that isn't quite ready to do that.
And there's a great core there for Sacramento to build with. Sabonis is a really good player. De'Aaron Fox is a great player. Looks like Keegan Murray might be something pretty special too. They've got a really nice core there. I think Mike Brown knows what he's doing. They're going to be fine going forward. One team in the NBA has Steph Curry and no one else does. And that is going to mean the Warriors are always contending. And I know that they weren't great this year, especially relative to their 4 championship teams in recent memory. And I get these. He doesn't seem 35 years old. Like Steph perennially to me is like 27, which is wild because it's been 8 years.
Yeah. And he's had like significant injuries.
Yeah. But he's so much NBA discourse is, you know, from a national perspective, especially is, well, what does this do to his legacy? Is he a top 5 player? Is he a top 10 player? Dude, I do not give a 4-letter S word where he ranks 1 through 10 all time. All I know is that I've never seen someone make shots the way that Steph Curry makes them. And if he's a top 1 point guard or 2 point guard, I don't really care. He is different and he is special. And no matter how many times, you know, Klay Thompson's had a great career. No matter how many times he comes and has a big old goose egg in a meaningful game, goes 4 of 19 from the floor, or that Draymond Green runs his mouth and writes a bunch of checks that is, you know, writes checks with his mouth, his ass can't cash, whatever the saying is. Steph Curry is always there, and it always gives them a chance, and it is just different. And I know the Warriors are annoying to a lot of people. I get it, but it's special watching that guy play basketball. It's incredible.
They're champions for a reason, 4-time champions, in fact, for a reason. And now they get to go against the Lakers. Again, star-driven teams, flawed rosters, very much flawed rosters in that series. There's a reason they were the 6 and 7 seeds, but they went up against teams. The Lakers went up against a team with no adults, and the Golden State played against a team that just wasn't ready for prime time in that way. And also, two of their best players were playing with hand injuries, which didn't help matters.
Not helpful.
So it is going to be the Lakers and the Warriors. As for the other series that we already knew about, yesterday, the Miami Heat took a 1-0 lead in their Eastern Conference semifinal with the New York Knicks, the 8 seed leading the 5 seed. What a topsy-turvy playoffs over in the Eastern Conference. The Heat rallied back. They got outplayed most of the first half, and then the second half just stopped missing shots, and Kevin Love was dropping dimes all over the place, and Jimmy Butler did his thing, and now the Heat have a 1-0 series lead, having taken Game 1 from the Knicks at the Garden. Also in the Eastern Conference, Game 1 tonight between the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers. No Joel Embiid for the 76ers, and his absence, however long it may be, will linger through this series, it feels like, as he is dealing with a knee injury more serious than previously reported. He received some of that PRP treatment, platelet-rich plasma injection treatment, on his injured knee, but he has been ruled out for tonight's Game 1. Also tonight, Game 2 of the Western Conference semifinal. The top-seeded Denver Nuggets look to go up 2-0 on the Phoenix Suns after they fairly dominated Phoenix on Saturday night in Game 1. Then those two teams have 3 days off. Apparently they are biking to Phoenix between Games 2 and 3 of that series.
They're taking razor scooters.
A gap in games that only benefits, I would think, the older team that is trying to get 40 to 45 minutes a night out of a 38-year-old point guard and a 35-year-old shooting guard with an injury history. But it may not be a very long series if Game 1 is any indication, because Denver did whatever they wanted offensively and shot more threes and got more rebounds and forced more turnovers. And when you do those 3 things, you create a math problem.
Yeah, let me tell you a little something. As a fan of an NBA team that just refuses to sign 3-point shooters or shoot 3-pointers, doesn't work out all that well for you. And the Phoenix Suns, not my team, same problem. They don't shoot threes. Like, KD can shoot threes.
Sure, Devin Booker can shoot threes, but that's not how they play.
No, they'd rather get to their spot and make mid-range jumpers, which is, the analytical debate is don't take mid-range shots, threes and dunks only. Well, if you can make them. And they're the best in the business at doing it.
Yes, maybe the best ever. Certainly the best of his era at doing it, Kevin Durant, and one of the best in his era in Devin Booker and Chris Paul, pull-up jumper artists. They're going to make a higher percentage of those mid-range shots. They shot like 51% in Game 1. That wasn't the problem. The problem was they gave up a bunch of rebounds and they turned the ball over a bunch, and Denver was plus 15, I think, from the three-point arc, and so the game was never close.
Is DeAndre Ayton the most overrated player in the NBA?
That would assume that there's anybody out there who overrates him.
Yeah, great take. He sucks. He's a bad NBA player, and he's got a bad attitude, and he's bad.
Yeah.
Whatever team pays him next is full of clowns.
They don't have great vibes at times, that Phoenix team, and we'll see. Like, they are more than capable of having a game where Durant and Booker combine for like 90 points, and they win. But can they do that 4 times in 6? Because that's what they need to do to beat a Denver team that, oh, by the way, they got some scorers too. Jamal Murray had 34 in Game 1. Nikola Jokic, just regular 24, 19, and 8. Like, they were the number 1 seed, and they're playing at a pretty high level right now. And I know everybody wants to make the West about the stars. KD, LeBron, Steph, Clay, AD, Booker, all those guys. Denver's playing really, really well. They have played 6 excellent games to start these playoffs.
The Suns are, of all the remaining playoff teams, last in dogs in them per 48. No dogs, absolutely none of them.
CP3 is already trying to cheap shot Jamal Murray in Game 1, like that. The
same
vibe
dirty player he's always been. Yeah.
See, Chris Paul's a rat. This is what he is. He's a rat. He's one of the least likable players of his generation. 18 years, no stands.
Yeah,
no CP3 hive. He's a rat.
Yeah,
he's a groin punching rat. And I hope what a
descriptor.
The Nuggets eliminate him. Hockey is a dumb sport. Nobody should watch it. That is the playoff roundup.
That's fine. We'll leave
No,
that. I won't make you relive it.
We'll be serious. It has been, you thought the NBA playoffs were topsy-turvy. How about the NHL playoffs? Upsets abound. The winningest team in the history of the league and the defending Stanley Cup champions, both eliminated in Game 7s on home ice yesterday. The Florida Panthers beating the Boston Bruins in overtime, coming back from a 3-1 series deficit to defeat and eliminate the 65-win Bruins, the most wins by a team in any regular season in NHL history. And the Colorado Avalanche fell 2-1 to the Seattle Kraken last night in Denver. Seattle advancing, winning their first ever playoff series. The defending Stanley Cup champs home for the summer.
You don't have to worry about hockey now.
I think my wife's happier about that than me. If you watched last night's game, like that was the most dominant 2-1 loss you've ever seen. Like Colorado, the first 30 minutes of that game felt like a power play for them, and they were losing 2-0. Like the first goal for Seattle went in off some dude's elbow. The whole series was full of moments like that, where it felt like obviously Colorado's the better team, just didn't get any breaks. They were really beat up. They had no depth. They did not have a player on their third or fourth lines register a point in the series. Not a goal, not an assist, nothing. And it's hard to win a playoff series, hard to win a best of 7 when that happens. Seattle's depth did win out over Colorado's star power, as some thought could happen, but nobody was predicting that. Full credit to Seattle. Colorado they had $90 million worth of forwards not play in this series. Nobody knows what's happening with Valerie Nichushkin. That's a very bad sounding situation. And then their captain didn't play all year. And Cale Makar was beat up. Josh Manson was beat up. Like important guys were either playing through injury or got injured or wound up in a really weird situation in the team hotel room before Game 3 and didn't play the rest of the series. So it just wasn't in the cards. And there's nothing more that I hate as like a competitor or a sports fan than hearing, hey, it wasn't meant to be after your team loses. But I'm also fully capable of knowing when it ain't meant to be. And brother, it was not meant to be for the Avalanche. The good news is flags fly forever.
That's right. They will always have last year's championship. Real quick, next headline for me. A basketball game between the University of Kansas and the University of Houston. Does that interest you?
Yeah.
A men's basketball game specifically.
Sounds like it'll be a propane heater next year on the Big 12 schedule.
Does it interest you that game might be played in Mexico City?
What?
Brett Yormark and the Big 12 Conference, according to Ross Dellinger of SI.com, have had tentative plans to hold regular season league games in both men's basketball and football in Mexico for months. And Commissioner Yormark even took a visit to Mexico City last week. That is where he met with officials and toured potential sites, including the Arena CDMX in Mexico City for basketball, which holds 22,000 people, as well as in Monterrey, Estadio BBVA, a 53,000-seat venue named El Gigante de Acero.
Gigante.
Gigante?
Yes.
Not Gigante?
No,
Okay.
that is El Gigante.
I took French. I did not take Spanish. I'm trying my best here, but flying blind. The Houston Chronicle first reported news of potential games being held in Mexico. That includes the preferred matchup below the border between the U.S. and Mexico being between Kansas and Houston for men's basketball. Like, a lot of the initial reaction to this, for the record, negative from Big 12 fans. A lot of, love you, Brett, but you're jumping the shark.
Like, I don't even get it when Notre Dame goes and plays college football games in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I understand it when it's professional sports, like you have a professional brand.
Yeah.
But pro sports means something all over the world. College sports only really mean something to us here. Like there's no like SEC in Mexico where all the universities are playing sports against each other and it's broadcast countrywide on television. Like this is a curiosity to the rest of the world. In fact, for a lot of the rest of the world, and for some people in America, it's like, why do we care so much about this stuff?
Well, I will tell you this. As far as I am aware, and I've never been to Mexico. I don't have, I don't know that much, but as far as I am aware, there is one college sports team that has a brand in any part of Mexico. Texas. You will see Longhorn stuff in plenty of places down there. Mm-hmm. But that's not because they're like, let's check, orange blood.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at recruiting.
Dialed into the 24/7 rankings down there.
Right. I think it's more so a cultural thing. And there's Texas and Mexico, there's so much cultural overlap and has literally been forever. In Juarez, there's some people who are rocking UTEP stuff. I don't know. But it's not a thing there like it is here. College sports, like you pointed out, is such a uniquely American thing. There's a reason.
Not their existence, but their importance.
Their importance, yeah. Like, there's a reason that there are a lot of really good international basketball players who come to the U.S. to play college basketball. Or kids who maybe grow up playing football in Germany or in Mexico who come and play it in the U.S. It's just not as much of a thing in these other countries. I get it. I understand it. And I understand Yormark's entire thing has been the Big 12 is not just a sports conference. It is an entertainment brand centered around college sports. And we're going to make it that by having, partnerships with A Bathe and Ape, with having Shaq DJ the Big 12 tournament, with these other things, and having our own anthem, all of that. I get that, but this seems like too much. This seems like, hey, don't forget the people who, the Big 12 is great because people care about it. Don't stray too far from that core.
Interesting question from the text line from the 785. Which of those teams would lose the home game? I can tell you this, not Kansas.
Yeah, it ain't going to be Kansas.
That's a non-starter for Travis Goff, right?
Oh, it has
non-starter.
It has to be. Yeah, fine us. I don't care. Put us on worst games for football. I do not care. We're not losing a home game. I would imagine, because I don't know what basketball scheduling is going to look like. Does anyone?
No.
It can't be double round robin. There's too many teams.
Yeah, not with 14 teams. Yeah, and it'd be hard to do it with 12.
I imagine that's a one-game thing then. I would think that in 23-24, Kansas and Houston's a one-game series.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine it's probably going to be protected rivalries for basketball too. Like KU and K-State will play twice. KU and Iowa State will play twice. I don't know what it'll look like beyond that. But I would think no one will lose a home game. It'll just be a one-game thing.
Yeah.
Because you're right. I mean, Kansas is not going to lose one. And at this point, Houston's good enough. They'd probably say, nah, kick rocks. We're not losing one either.
Yeah. There's a reason that this stuff gets out before it's made official.
Yep.
And I think this feels like a trial balloon. And we'll see the reaction to it. Like you said, it's been resoundingly negative. It just feels like unnecessary. It is in line with a lot of, as you broke down, the stuff that Yormark has done since becoming commissioner, but also I don't know that college basketball needs to go overseas so bad,
or in football too,
particularly conference games. I can understand what Kentucky want to play a game in France, or am I making that up in London? The Kentucky and Michigan, I think they're going to play in London or something.
I think you're right about that.
That's one thing, but a conference game?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, one more headline for me in our 5A Sports Talk headlines. Salute to the Batcats. K-State baseball on a heater. They win 2 out of 3 from 14th ranked Texas Tech, and at least one ranker of college baseball teams believes that makes them worthy of a top 25 ranking. The Collegiate Baseball Poll has K-State 22nd in their latest top 25. Bad news for the Batcats. I think they're only 57th in the RPI, so they still got some work to do if they want to make the postseason.
Got to keep winning.
But they're doing everything they can do, which is continuing to win. They got a 3-gamer this weekend against SEMO at Toynton Family Stadium. It would behoove them to win all of them.
We are going to get to a break here on 580 Sports Talk as we wrap up our headlines. We've got Royals to get to later. Plus, coming up after this, an interesting note from the Kansas City Chiefs and a move that sounds like it's going to be happening pretty darn soon. We'll explain next on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk on this Monday, May 1st. Thanks so much for stopping by and being a part of the show with us. Wanted to get to a real quick note from Brett Veach's press conference earlier today. You heard it in full on Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton. But a couple of running back notes. One, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the first person he saw when he got to the building today. Interesting. Also interesting, the Chiefs did not draft a running back. I really thought they would.
I thought they would too, and I think that between that and Veach's comments today about them feeling really good about re-signing Jerick McKinnon suggests to me that they're going to roll with backs that they're comfortable with, that know the offense, that they trust.
That apparently is what the move is going to be, and that's what I also wanted to get to. Jerick McKinnon sounds like it's going to happen. Brett Veach said recently that, we've been in contact with him, and then today said he wouldn't be surprised if something got done pretty soon. And then, 15 minutes after that, Ian Rappaport pretty much said, yeah, McKinnon plans to re-sign with the Chiefs. That fit is so perfect because for the Chiefs, he knows the system. His role is very clearly defined. He's good at it. And you're probably not going to be able to replace someone who is that good at running between the tackles, catching the ball on the outside, and helping out in pass protection to the degree that McKinnon is at the price that you're get McKinnon for. And look, if you're Jet McKinnon, you don't have to have a huge workload. Like, yeah, could you maybe make money, a little bit more money somewhere else if you tried the free agent market? Well, now as an older running back, and given the running back market this offseason, maybe not. But again, you know the system. The team is comfortable with you. They're going to get you the ball plenty, but not to a level that you're going to get all torn up. And for a guy who's had multiple catastrophic knee injuries, that's a pretty good spot to be in. I think that's a good fit. And I told you this the other day, if I'm McKinnon, I'm not going to OTAs. You kidding me? No, I'll sign that deal on June 25th.
Yeah,
I will see you at camp.
A running back with that much mileage on him and the injury history. Yeah. The OTAs for who? For what? I know the offense. They know me.
Yeah. Did Andy drop a new play? Send me a text send me a text with a picture in it. We're fine.
Gift me.
Yeah. Slide in my DMs with it. We're fine. I don't need to be at OTAs.
No, makes all the sense in the world. They did sign one UDFA running back.
Let me go see the Chiefs undrafted players. I focused so much on the Washburn players. I didn't even really pay attention to who else they signed.
So Deneric Prince.
Tulsa.
Yes. So Deneric Prince is the running back's name. So there's this thing called speed score that a lot of people use to evaluate running backs. I don't know how you do it necessarily. Like, I can't tell you like the math formula to calculate speed score.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that it favors bigger players who run really, really fast. So like Zach Charbonnet, second round draft pick of the Seahawks, his speed score was 101.64. Tank Bigsby was a third round pick. He had a lower speed score. Both of those guys ran a 4.5. Bigsby's speed score was a 97.14. Devin A-Chain, super fast, like 4.3. Draft. Around 4.46 40. 108.67.
And it should go without saying, the bigger the number, the better the score.
Yes, higher number, better score. Jahmyr Gibbs had the highest speed score of any drafted running back. Of any running back prospect in the NFL draft. Wow. 114.22 off the charts. 216 pounds, ran a 4.41 40. Isaiah Pacheco last year had the best speed score of any running back prospect in the draft.
Wow.
The Chiefs have a type.
Apparently they do. The Chiefs are not willing to stray from their thresholds. And when your team's not winning, that's annoying. When your team is winning, why would we? Nah, we'll stick with that. So it looks like the Chiefs are going to keep most in is you call different role well. you can live with another year of Clyde Edwards. That's, he's got plenty of speed. Your running backs room that you've got no problem with that. By the way, going to the draft that Tyjae Spears does not have an ACL.
No.
Did you hear that during day 2?
No. I missed that. I was probably going to mute when he asked that.
Tyjae Spears from Tulane. Awesome player. Awesome player. He does not have an ACL in one of his knees. He has had multiple knee injuries and torn ACLs in his career, including very early on in his career. Apparently, this was said on NFL Network when he was drafted. Apparently, there is a worry that he is not going to play beyond his first contract. And he already has the development of arthritis in one of his knees.
Oh, jeez.
Which is obviously incredibly unfortunate. So good for him that he was drafted in the 3rd round. I mean, he has as much talent as a Gibbs or close to a Bijan Robinson. I think he's that good of a player. But I guess there is a legit worry that he is just not going to be able to play very long. He's had hamstring injuries, had a torn ACL, and a torn meniscus in his right knee, to the point where now he's just got, like, what's the word? Necrosis is the process of it, but it is just dead cartilage in his knee that is never going to go away. And he does not have an ACL in his knee. And
then he can't tear it.
Yeah.
Right side.
Well, because Elway didn't have an ACL, right? Or he just always had a torn ACL. He had something with his knee too. And they just said, hey, look, he might not play more than 4 years, but he's going to be damn good for 4 years. So we're going to draft him. And honestly, I kind of like that for Tennessee. And I hope that Tyjae Spears has a long and healthy career and a long and healthy life after his career. But yeah, I heard that during the draft and I thought, what the hell? I'm not really surprised the Chiefs didn't take a flyer on him.
Yeah.
He literally does not have an anterior cruciate ligament. Let's get to a break. We'll talk some Royals baseball after this on 580 Sports Talk.
Do you
It was a tough weekend for the Kansas City Royals. They did win a game against the Twins. They did not get swept.
Got that going for him.
Yeah.
And it's weird that like all the Royals wins are like these inspirational wins, like these late game comebacks, ninth inning wins, rallies. Like they're fighting. It's not ain't good. Like it'd be one thing if they weren't, fighting. If they, we're behind 2-0 here in the third, then pack it up. And, giving away at bats. And
that was last year's team.
Yeah, it really was. This year's team doesn't have that in them. Like they battle, but there's but so much battling you can do when your starter gives up 8 runs in 2 2/3, like happened yesterday. There's but so much battling you can do at the bottom of your order when you're still got Michael Massey out there. Speaking of Michael Massey, though, we got to congratulate the man. Michael Massey, folks. Michael Massey drew a walk.
Hey.
He did it. He drew a walk. First walk of the season. Never you mind that ball 4 was only ball 4 because the pitcher committed a pitch clock violation. Not important. Michael Massey drew a walk. That's what's important.
Brad Keller pitched better in the win on Saturday. 1 run allowed in 5 1/3 innings, 6 hits, did walk 5. That's not great.
Yeah, it's still, gosh, the command is just not there.
No.
And early, like first couple of starts were looking promising in that regard. But yeah, just the command continues to waver. And you can't walk that many guys. He's got to iron that out. Otherwise, I don't think he's long for the rotation.
Before we get to the pitchers who really struggled, can I tell you a very sad thing about I was talking a couple weeks ago about Royals irrelevancy, and they can get worse for the Royals. They can get to a point where literally no one cares. Less than 100 people liked and or replied to the Royals tweet of their final score yesterday. Usually you get a firm like 150 people saying, let's already burn it down again, or I hate this team, or people making fun of the Royals or whatever. Like 50 people replied. Like there's just not a whole lot of care.
Did we even get an I hate it here tweet from Fulton yesterday?
Oh, we might not have.
Yeah, we did. We did.
Oh, we did. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad the brand stays true. I went to Brad Keller's ESPN page, and I went to his game log because I couldn't remember the last time he had a solid start. He's had 6 starts this year. 4 have been what you would call solid, even though he's walking too many guys, and 2 that were pretty rough. The autoplay video on ESPN.com for Brad Keller is titled, "Does Anderson deserve suspension for scrum with Keller?" Do you remember when Tim Anderson and Brad Keller got in a fight? It was before COVID.
Yeah, it was 2019.
Because the video is of, pardon the interruption, and it's Kornheiser and Wilbon face to face. Tony Kornheiser doesn't go to the studio anymore. He's like a total germaphobe. He doesn't leave his house. He has a home studio for Pardon the Interruption now. This was like 2019. That's the last thing ESPN has on Brad Keller, queued up by their AI.
That's wild.
That's rough.
We have a texter from the 785 asking what the definition of a quality start is. It is 6 or more innings, 3 or fewer runs allowed, which in a vacuum, like one day, yeah, you take that because you feel like if you're through 6 and the other team has only scored 3 runs, you probably have a chance to win. Considering you have if you have an average offense, which the Royals don't, but that's a whole other thing. But yeah, you would consider if your starter leaves through 6 innings and only gave up 3 or fewer runs, that would be fine. But if you had a pitcher who did that every start, 6 innings, 3 earned runs, they'd have a 4.50 ERA.
So it's like a 4 starter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so like the bar for a single game doesn't seem that low, but a bar for a whole season is a pretty low bar.
The 2 starts I mentioned that were bad. Jordan Lyles stinks. It's the Jordan Lyles honeymoon is over, April 2023 to April 2023. He's bad. He's not good. And more importantly, Brady Singer got rocked yesterday. It wasn't a tough start. It was straight up butt. 2 2/3 innings, 5 hits, 3 walks, 8 earned runs. Did strike out 5.
Yeah, like when they weren't swinging and missing, though, they were peppering downtown Minnesota with artillery shells off the bat.
Yeah.
Byron Buxton hit one that's still going.
That you can't have that, man. Like losing the game, so what? Who cares? It doesn't matter. Sonny Gray's a good pitcher, whatever. He gave a 1 run in 6 innings. Like Singer cannot afford to get blasted like that.
We talked about the staff as a whole hitting some benchmarks. Remember, they were dead last and everything last year. We said, if they can take some steps forward, The good news is they are. They're 10th in the American League in strikeouts. We thought if they could get out of like the bottom 5, that would be like a decent step in the right direction. That would be the only stat they're out of the bottom 5 in right now. They are 13th in earned run average, 13th in hits and runs allowed, 12th in walks, 13th in home runs allowed. The home runs are a problem. You've got 2 pitchers giving up over a homer and a half, 3 starters giving up more than a homer and a half per 9. You got 2 relievers, 3 if you count Josh Taylor, who's been around for like 2 seconds, giving up more than 2 home runs per 9. You can't do it, especially when you're the Royals and you are, as a team, 13th in the American League in home runs.
That's
like that's a big part of what baseball is, right? Especially in this era. Hit the ball far.
Mm-hmm.
Hit the ball over the fence. You do it more than the other team, you got a pretty good chance of being pretty good. You do it that much less than the other team. The Royals have 20 home runs. They have given up 41. That is the stat of the year so far.
That is gross. We've got to get to a break. No Royals baseball tonight. Thank God for that. We're going to take a timeout. We'll wrap up 580 Sports Talk after this with the final word.
In business.
Let's wrap up 580 Sports Talk with a May 1st final word, Dan.
Ceding my time to the Bard from the text line for the 785 regarding the Royals. The starters are a complete mess. What ails them, I can't even guess. They can't find the plate. That's the thing that I hate. Me too. Falling low is my level of zest.
Zest is such a good word.
Hey, at least they won't lose tonight.
That's true. And we'll take that. Final word for me. One, biggest mistake in my life is not becoming best friends with Aaron Rodgers, because I would be paid and comfortably employed for the rest of eternity.
And not for lack of trying.
Nope. The Jets are signing offensive lineman Billy Turner to a 1-year contract. Billy's a good player, but they're going to sign all of his best friends.
They hired Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah, it's very funny at this point. And the final word for me, this Chiefs draft went about the way I expected it to. They got good players and guys who produced in college, really good athletes, maybe not a lot of flash, but it fits the thresholds. It fills a bunch of needs. And knowing Brett Veach, several of them probably going to end up being really darn good NFL players at this point. That does it for 580 Sports Talk today. Coming up tomorrow, Michael Swain is going to join us. We will also be joined, lucky us, for the second week in a row. Jordan Foote is going to stop by to recap the NFL draft with us tomorrow afternoon. We'll also get to What Is Wrong With You and so much more. That is tomorrow from 3 until 6. Don't forget to check out the podcast version of the show on our website, 580wibw.com. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3 o'clock. For Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. Thanks for listening to 580 Sports Talk.